agendas. I don't like to read it. If I could preface things with that, maybe they know what you're doing, but they know what you're doing. And I know you come from a good place. I don't accuse you of doing things. Did anybody think about things? Did anybody think that is exact. I literally have almost that same thing written down. I want to hear their side of it. I want to do something. Not everything. Not everything, but this one. We're here. Hello, Mr. Austin. Are you?
my big moments.
How are you? Good. There's a 30-second delay. It's right. Yeah. Yes. I just came across.
It's gonna go down to 9 on Monday. 9 degrees. And we like I'm in.
I was thinking, I saw that.
Yes.
So we do.
No.
We don't normally.
And not just parents, all citizens, seniors, everybody, who get together and go over what they concerns from the community that they would like to see back throughout the week. So it really started as soon as April was done, they would start working on the next year's budget. So we'll had a lot of anybody can be on it. So yes, when it went to the 2% cap, there was and I should go back. The reason that it was there was because eventually that budget would have to go out to the public and be advertised and be voted on. So you have to do that. You need community buy-in. So budget advocacy, they do like the budget is decided on, help support the budget and advocate for it. And just coming out and saying publicly, we have been a part of this, we've seen it, we see the need for it, working with just supporting what the work that is doing. When the 2% cap went into place, there was not that kind of thing. We still have budget advocacy for a couple of years. Go above 2%. So we just the last time a budget advocacy was did a referendum for groups. Because we did need community buy-in for that. It was kind of
see you.
Sir, I should have asked this. Are we allowed to take pictures or no?
Yes, you are. It's a public forum. You're more than welcome.
Okay.
That's also the reason why we put it out, so that you will be available too. You can take on pictures.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Should have asked that before.
Not a problem. My pleasure.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry about the delay. Momentarily, we'll be getting started.
Adequate notice of this meeting was provided by sending such notice to the Asbury Park Press, the Middletown Patch, and the Middletown Township Public School District website, and the posting of such notice at the August T. Minor administrative offices and each elementary, middle, and secondary school in the district. Roll call.
Mrs. Caminetti? Mr. DeFranco?
Here.
Mr. Donlin?
Here.
Mr. Dymo? Mr. Little? Mrs. Maywees?
Here.
Mrs. Ray?
Here.
Mrs. Stella? Mrs. Rogers?
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for Andrew Casal, who passed away on January 6, 2019. Andrew was a 2015 graduate of High School South. Our thoughts and prayers are with Andrew and his family. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'd like to start with the report of the president. First thing I would like to talk about is our relationship with the Township Committee and the Board of Ed. We've been working very hard, both parties, to start a new trust with them. We've been working together. Neither of us is interested in changing the election to April. We're keeping it in November. And we're going to further discuss this matter together. I'm grateful to the Deputy Mayor and the Mayor for accepting our invitation to talk to them and to start this great positive relationship. And I'm thankful for Mrs. Snell for being here tonight from the Township Committee. And we hope to attend their meetings as well to cultivate this good relationship in the future. Yes. My second item is the Adopt a School program that we want to start. I had board members request 2 schools each, and Mr. DeFranco requested Middletown South and Thompson. Mr. Little requested Fairview and Lincroft. I have for Leonardo and Harmony. I have for Joan Navasink and Nutswan. Well, I know you go to everything, Joan, but I just divvied them out. So people who didn't request, I just gave them a couple.
I kind of would like to go to schools that I'm not involved in. Like my grandkids go to that school, so if I want to go to a PTA meeting there, you know, I go to schools that I don't have kids in. Because you
Okay.
really need to get to know everywhere.
Do you want to trade me for Ocean Ave? To Ocean Ave? I'll do that, so you do Ocean Ave?
I'll wait and see what's left.
Okay. All right.
I don't mind going to Ocean Ave because I go to their stuff anyway.
Okay.
I just don't.
Yeah, and this is not to discourage people, this is not to discourage board members from going to all the events that they already go to, but this is just a nice little way to get the board members' faces out there. Those who don't get to attend everything, that at least they can attend the 2 schools that they've adopted, that's all. Mrs. Stella, I have New Monmouth and High School North. For myself, I have River Plaza and Ocean Avenue. For Tom Jaimo, I have Leonardo and Bayshore. For Deborah Wright, I have Bayview and Port Monmouth. And for Mike, I have Thorne. And I'm hoping Mike can go to the sporting events, but I know he goes to a lot of the sporting events. Yes. Absolutely. You're strongly encouraged to keep going to all the schools. Yeah, this is just a little something for people who can't always make it to everything. This way we just have the 2 schools to focus on, and then you can come back at the board meeting and talk about all these great events. Some positive PR to get the good positive word about what we're doing in the schools out there. That's all. Yeah. Okay. So the next item of business, I need a motion to approve the revised 2019 board meeting schedule.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, good question. I know in our packet we have a copy of the school board calendar. Is there any way to go forward to the board meetings to be added to the school calendar?
The board meetings be added to the school calendar?
Knowing that it's zero the next week, there's no school, maybe we can have a little more on the calendar. For the board meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Right? Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Gotta get all the appropriate people in the room to make that happen, right there. And ensure that.
Thank you.
Upon tonight's voting, it will be live upon tonight's voting.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Dan said.
I was sharing, it will be live upon tonight's vote. I've asked a number of times in superintendent's offices, you're aware, Dr. George, that once that meeting schedule has been approved, then it will definitely go up.
Yeah, because it regularly is there.
Yes.
Dan's pointed is right there, just had to go through yet, that's why I wasn't there.
That's
But it will be. Thank you.
I just want you to know the changes on this calendar. And my calendar, my personal calendar, things I have. I'm not going to be able to make these changes. 6 of these changes. I definitely will not be here for these meetings. I know they're workshop meetings, but I just want you to know it's on record. Because we're supposed to commit to our meetings, and I can't be here. Because of what you did.
Okay, I understand.
Okay?
Anybody else?
Yes. I don't have a problem with the meeting dates, but I have a problem with why this was done. So I'm not going to vote for this because people like, you know, in the beginning it was me, now it's Leonora. You're taking somebody that's elected. We all knew when the meetings were. You changed it. Now there's 6 meetings she can't attend. You're stopping her from doing her elected, you know, responsibility. It's just not fair of why it happened.
Okay, well, we did have the doodle doc where everybody did weigh in, and I did watch the trend. of all the board members and what they were choosing. And it did move towards the Wednesdays, so I kept myself out of it till the end. And I saw that most people were choosing the Wednesdays. So I went for the Wednesdays when I could. And when I could not, I left some of the dates exactly the same. And I believe that it's a compromise. It's a compromise for all of us.
I get what you did with Duke, but I'm still saying on the record, it's not fair what you did to Leonore.
Well, can I comment on that? The year before, we went from Wednesday to Tuesday to Wednesday, right? Yeah, we did. So, you know, change has come to this board.
And we do sometimes change the meetings to Mondays. So there is a lot of change. Yeah, that's a good point, Mike. Anybody else? Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Abstentions? Okay. Next we have personnel.
Personnel. You also put out a committee list. I can't make the pick one every month.
Okay,
You know,
absolutely.
with my calendar.
Okay.
You know, the other places, I think I can't.
Okay, we have 3 others on pick, so we should be okay. Thank you.
Now, I have a comment on that too. When you take on a liaison to a committee, you should be able to be there. Do you understand what the scholarship committee involves?
Scholarship committee. I don't. Can you explain to me?
Yeah, it's 4 days, 3 to 4 days in a row, all day long, of interviewing students. You can't just come in and out. It's a full-time commitment.
Okay.
So, me personally, I work during the days too. I can't take 4 days off. I used to do it when I had the time. I haven't done it. I just want to know if everybody on that committee is committed to taking those 3 days off of work to be able to sit on those interviews, because you can't just go hit or miss. It's a whole process, and it's a really great process to be a part of. But to assign somebody there when you don't know if they could go or not, that's not doing the process any consideration, or even, you know, having representation on there. People aren't going to be able to take 3 days off.
Okay, well, you know, I hope we can do our best. I just sat in on some interviews for a principal the other day, and Dr. George was able to work that around my schedule, and I was very grateful. And I think that we can take care of this. And
Well, I just would like you to take me off the scholarship committee, because for me, if I'm going to be a liaison to something, I want to make sure I can be there and do the best I can. I can't make those days in a row. And I also told you that I didn't want to be the PIC liaison, because I go to PIC every month, but I have to leave early because I work. So I do not want to be a liaison to something that I don't.
You told me that you weren't going to come to PIC. You didn't want to go to PIC.
No, I told you.
You were there.
No.
I was there on Tuesday.
Pam, I told you I didn't want to be the liaison. I go to PIC every month, but I also leave early if you watch, unless the meeting is done earlier, because I have to work at 11:30 every
Where
Tuesday.
does it say that you're the liaison? I just see our 4 names there. I don't see liaison.
But when you put our 4 names there, you're making us the liaison.
Okay, well, I'll be there.
So just to interject, just to clarify a little bit, one of the duties of the president is to assign people to committees.
Right.
If that does not, if there are issues, then you work them out. But it is the role of the president to assign
I
people to committees.
I understand, but when I'm a liaison to something, I want to be there. I want to know that I can commit. I can't commit to those. So I would really like to take my name off, because I really want people thinking that, listen, she's a liaison, she's not here, she's not fulfilling her duty. That's not right.
Okay.
On the scholarship, too, if I can just clarify on the scholarship policy, because I also weighed in on this, Mrs. Rogers. By policy, Mrs. Rogers is following the policy, because there's supposed to be 1 person for each of the 2 high schools, and then, so in our review of the policy, and I did review this with Ms. Walk too, to make sure that we were trying to implement this with fidelity. We had 1 person and then an alternate in case in the situation something were to arise or the alternate could then fill in. So I just want to say that I advised Mrs. Rogers on that, and I thought I was doing that with fidelity to how the policy was written and how it had been done.
And I emailed everyone. I emailed multiple times, and everybody else got back to me. Joan, and you did not.
I did, Pam. I have my email to show you.
So is it possible, I'm sorry, but is it possible?
Okay, noted. We take
So is it possible to have that committee with one less person?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Yes.
That's why I'm making my point. And Pam, I will send the whole board the email that I sent to you because I did respond. I even asked a question. So please don't ever say I didn't respond when I did.
Okay. I need a motion to adjourn the special voting meeting and open for the pre-meeting workshop.
We didn't vote.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, I'm just a little flustered. I can't imagine why.
So do we have a motion? Did anyone make a motion?
No one has made a motion. So to move the personnel items on the report, items 1 through 9.
I make a motion. Second.
I'm sorry, who made the motion? Yes.
Any discussion?
All in favor?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
On all items?
Yeah.
All right, now moving on to personnel, please. So now I need to-
Well, the only other thing we had before that was the resolution for the School Boards Association.
And just as a point of order, this resolution comes from the county.
Yes.
From the county. So it's not that this board is voting on this, but you're acknowledging that.
It's an acknowledgement
Right. Okay.
of the month. Yes.
Okay. So should I read it? Okay.
Or you would like to read it when something.
Okay, no, it's okay. Okay, so it's School Board Recognition Month in New Jersey, January 2019, and I'd just like to read this resolution. Whereas New Jersey's public schools serve approximately 1.4 million children, and whereas the educational goals for these districts are chartered by local school boards, which serve as advocates for public education as they work with school administrators, teachers, parents, and members of the community. And whereas boards of education provide accountability to the public, they communicate the needs of the school district to the community, and they convey to the school administration the public's expectations for the district. And whereas school board members devote countless hours to their communities and public education at no pay, and whereas local board members dedicate extraordinary amounts of time and effort to receive training and to communicate with state and federal lawmakers on behalf of their community's children, and whereas the New Jersey School Board Association has declared January 2019 to be School Board Recognition Month in New Jersey, a time when residents can acknowledge the contributions made by the 5,000 local Board of Education members. Now therefore be it resolved that the Monmouth County School Board Association, an organization with the goal of enhancing the work of local school boards, commends the dedication of the local school board members in Monmouth County, and be it further resolved that the Monmouth County School Board Association encourages qualified citizens to consider serving on their local boards of education.
Mrs. Rogers?
Yes.
I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn the special voting meeting and open the pre-meeting workshop.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. And now can we move on to the committee reports? Starting with facilities.
We brought Steve Siegel from Spiesel Architects before the board to hear an update on the ESIP projects. We've been updating the board every month on the status of the projects, but Spiesel has been our architect overseeing a lot of the work and working with us to
So thank you for having me tonight. I just wanted to give you an update as well and talk about the ESIP project. Some of you have been on the board for a while that know the project took place. We started this a little over 2.5 years ago. It was a long process going through the energy audits and trying to get all the project scope defined and see what can fit. So the end result was an $11.2 million project that's being paid for out of the savings versus the taxpayers' dollars. So this was a very successful project. Everything is pretty much complete at this point. All of the solar is up and running at all the schools. Everything finished up at the end of the year, as that was supposed to. There were no change orders or any unforeseens that came up that we couldn't address in the field with the solar project. There's one meter that just needs to be swapped out at this school, otherwise everything else is pretty much done. And now we're going through some commissioning and final third-party verification on the solar as well as some of the other projects. The HVAC project actually was very successful. Those bids came in low enough to where we were able to issue, which is really the only change order on all of these projects, and that was for additional rooftop units that addressed the rest of the Thorne, Thompson, and High School South rooftop units that were originally discussed. We were trying to figure out ways to get paid. There was enough funds to cover those, and that's what was expanded on the scope. Other than that, all of those units are done. The rooftop units are now being commissioned, which is where they go and check and make sure that everything is running properly. They're working out, fleshing out some of the bugs with control systems and making sure that that's running, and we're in the process of finishing the punch list. But other than that, those systems are up and running. As far as the lighting goes, all of the elementary schools, that was sort of the biggest part of the project because we're doing a lot of ceilings related to the lighting in the elementary schools, and they had 2 months to do it. So those of you who work in the school district or have been in the schools over the summer know what went on to try to get that done. It was pretty crazy at times. They were ripping ceilings down, putting lights up, putting new ceilings in, and it's kind of a mess, but we got through it, and they finished on time, getting all those ceilings and lights back up and running for the start of school, and then again getting into just punch list items that they were able to do after school hours. And then the high schools and middle schools, we did after school hours and holidays, weekends, and so forth, and they finished up in the end of the year, except for South, which should be finished up within this next week. And High School North is supposed to be finished by, I think it's mid-February. So that's the only one that's dragging a little bit beyond. But everything else is done and operational. So as far as the savings go for those, you should start seeing everything coming through now in your electric bills. And Amy and I have been talking, so we're going to start helping track those to make sure you're seeing your savings, starting with the December bill through the next year, and make sure that those are working properly. We also did, as part of the project, there was a direct install program. So 6 of the elementary schools were done under direct install, which is a program that's run through the BPU, the state, and whereas you paid 30% and they paid 70% for those projects, and those all were rolled into this energy savings project as well. And those are all complete at this point too, going through some punch lists and cleanup items. Again, with all those, the lighting in particular, we thought we'd take the ceilings down and see some problems. No change orders, we were able to go through. We documented a lot of the existing conditions. We spent a lot of time above the ceilings to make sure of that. And at the end of the day, we have about $1 million left over on the project, which could help go for funding any initial payments that have to be made before these savings start to kick in, and other options that we have to work out those finance payments. But that's kind of very high level. I just wanted to go through quickly and touch on all the projects. But you know, again, it was a very successful project. The contractors responded to us. We had some times where they may not have been moving, but they came out and we spoke to them, and they responded and fixed things. And I think in general, it was a very successful project for the district and for the taxpayers.
A question?
I'm sorry, I was just going to add that we're also in the process, as part of the solar PPA, they're installing monitors in all of the schools that have the solar. The only school that did not get panels was Leonardo, because the space on the roof just wasn't adequate to sustain the project. But the schools will be getting monitors where they can see the power that's being generated and the trends and so forth. So that will be something that will be educational for the students as well. So we're in the process of getting those in. And at a future board meeting, we can bring that up actually on the screen and show you what those metrics look like and what the students are seeing.
That's a great point, thank you.
So this is Gallagher going right in my mind. So my question actually is,
what is the target percentage of renewable solar energy that we're looking to have powering the district? So as we move off of whatever Jason Cannell is giving us, like, is it 20% us, 80% them, 50-50? What was the target?
You know, so we designed the system, actually the PPA company designed it, but when we laid it out initially, what we thought you would be able to fit on the roofs, they actually got 1 kilowatt more than what we predicted. So we looked at it in terms of size, not necessarily in terms of percentage, but I can certainly check that. We have your utility bills and see what the KW usage is versus the KW that was installed on the roof. Because the KW that was installed on the roof was, I have that chart here. Basically it's 3.766 kilowatts. We had planned for 3.765, so they got one more. We told them they had to get at least what we put out there better, and they made one better. But I can find that out and report back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. This is Rogers, we just have one more item under facilities that I'll just talk about briefly before we move on to the next area. The only other item we have under facilities is the high school north field drainage issue, and we've been talking about that the last meeting or two. There's been issues out behind high school north with the field basically not draining, and we've had water problems back there. We've been in the process of looking at it, we're an engineer in. There's wetlands back there, so it's an engineer that's experienced in environmental issues and dealing with the DEP. We have to move forward to get permits to do work, but essentially the solution to this issue is not something that we can do in-house. So we're in the process of having the engineer put together specs for us, and we're going to have to put this work out to bid and get that work done, because it made the fields very in not great condition over the fall, and we really want to get this resolved before next fall. So we don't know what the bids will come in at. We do anticipate it will be more than $40,000, which is why we're putting it out to bid. If we do not have the funds within our budget, we will have to look to our maintenance reserve to fund that project to get that done for this year. But we will keep the board apprised, when the bids come in. Of course, you'll have to approve the board when it's ready. So we just want to let the board know about that.
Amy, quick question. Somebody turn the heat on.
I can look into that during another presentation. Yes.
And at this time, move to the curriculum presentation so that we can get the building level administrators, secondary building level.
We can have a curriculum presentation so that we can have the principals that they start very early in the morning. So, and vice principals, so we get them up here and do that next.
Good evening, everyone.
It's kind of a good spot to stand because we should use the full breadth of the room. I don't like having my back. It's making me a little nervous. It's okay. You look trustworthy.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? My name is Matt Kirkpatrick, and I'm the principal of Middletown High School South. I'm here tonight with Ms. Nicholas, who's the assistant principal of guidance at High School South, Dr. Cartier, who's the principal at High School North, and Tony Mormile, who's the assistant principal at High School North. And we're here to discuss a senior flex option that we plan on implementing with our seniors next year. And I am going to start by talking about some of the rationale used when making the decision to implement such a program. So from time to time, we have seniors come and visit us and approach us and want an option of a senior flex program, which would allow them to either leave early or come in a little bit late. They're very aware that by state standards, they only need 120 credits to graduate, plus taking English and physical education their senior year. So they can, like I said, they can come in a little bit late, or they can leave early. They can go to a job that supports college and career readiness. They can go to a job that's going to help them pay for college the next year. They can do community service, they can do an internship, they can work on schoolwork, or they can come up with a service project that they can work on with guidance counselors or teachers that they can get credits for. One of our goals over the last couple of years as administrators has also been to work on school attendance. And what we have found when we've analyzed our data is that our seniors, as they go, compared to our underclassmen, the seniors' tardies and absences are much, much higher. What we feel is that they're not intrinsically motivated to take those classes that they don't necessarily need. They know that they already have the 120 credits, they know that they have to take English, they know they have to take physical education, but they're really not buying into some of the other courses that they have to take. There's no intrinsic value, therefore they're coming in late on their own, or they're just staying home. So we feel like giving them the option to either leave early or come in a little bit later will get them to improve their absentee rate. And finally, we've all read the news and articles about teens needing additional sleep. I have 3 teenagers at home, and I can attest to the fact that they do need additional sleep. So, if we have a system where they can come in a little late, those students who are very involved in extracurricular activities, or they have jobs where they're working late into the evening, they have the option of coming in a little late, and hopefully this will also improve their absenteeism and their tardiness as well. I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Mormile now.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to tell you about the first 2 options that we have for our seniors. Once again, this is our way of formalizing a plan for our seniors to get out and to follow their passions and do some individualized learning on what they may pursue beyond Middletown as they further their education. The first one is called the Capstone Project. This is new. We're thinking it's going to be a full year option for 10 credits for students. This is where students do individual research, independent research on a problem of their choice. And they work with a faculty member of their choice in order to produce a research paper or some sort of community project where they reveal their deep understanding of the topic. So this could be a presentation in front of other faculty members, administrators. It's a lot like our independent study now, but we want to add a little more components to it. So that's one option. Again, it's called the Capstone Project. Another option that we have currently in our course catalog, but it's not utilized much, is called the Service Learning Project, where students get out into the community and organize service that somehow meets the need of a certain part of the community. It's something, like I said, it's on the books right now, but we don't really use it much, and we're going to try to find a way to get it working so our seniors could get out and do some good service work. I'm going to turn it over to my counterpart over at South Tower, Nicholas.
Okay, so we realize that this program wouldn't be for every student. Competitive colleges and universities do want students taking rigorous courses all throughout high school, including senior year. So we kind of explored programs that other local districts are doing, and a lot of them simply do the early release, where students are going on to work, maybe do community service or get an internship. We thought it was important for our students who want to go on to competitive colleges and university to have a senior early release, but get some credit bearing with that, and that's why we decided on those 2 projects that we are going to still further explore. But for students who necessarily don't want to continue taking all those extra credits, we said like the senior internship program, we could also allow them going to work. But additionally, we're hoping more students would take advantage on going to Brookdale, coming in for our dual enrollment that we already have, the early release program, where students are part-time in our high schools and part-time on Brookdale campus. We think the more the word gets out about senior early release, more students will take care of that. Additionally, the Middletown School District has been working with the other school districts in the county with Brookdale Brookdale is under a new administration, and what they're finding is a lot of the students, after completing high school, they are entering into Brookdale taking basic skills classes, some foundation courses, meaning Brookdale does not feel like they are prepared to go on and take college level classes, and they are basing that on the AccuPlacer or SAT scores. So we are working with Brookdale. We have a meeting at the end of this month where they want to hear from us and they want to hear from the schools. And one of these options, if we did senior early release, we would release our seniors who are going on to Brookdale to take these foundation courses while they're currently in high school, instead of waiting until they're in college, so that hopefully they will complete their 2 years at Brookdale in 2 years instead of having to take the remedial courses and then going on for the 2 years. The good news is, around the county, the students in Middletown who need to take remedial courses, we are some of the lowest percentile in doing that. We are working with Brookdale to see if we could find some more about these students who need these remedial courses, because based on FERPAs, we do not have these names, so we don't know what math they took in our buildings or necessarily what English, and things like that. So I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Cardia.
Okay, so I'm the closer. At this point, we have to do some necessary steps. First and foremost is to review the existing Board of Education high school graduation policy for review and revision as necessary to reflect this new practice. Then we have to get the word out to the entire community and all of the stakeholders involved. First and foremost, we'll speak with the faculty, and we'll do this at our general meeting, and also in small group settings. Mr. Kirkpatrick and myself have monthly principals advisory meetings, and we'll be discussing all of the possible options. The next group, of course, would be the students. We will be first with the juniors, explaining and highlighting all the possible options that they may have. We'll also speak to the underclassmen, because many of them may now be motivated to do as well as possible in their academic programs, and also on the standardized state assessment, so that they would be eligible for one of these options when they become seniors. We will then also meet with the guidance counselors to highlight each specific option, so as they meet one-on-one with the students in scheduling for next year, they can explain all of these possible options. It will also be on different social media platforms for the students to, again, determine what they would like to do moving forward. And the next group, of course, would be the parents. And we would, again, explain all of this to them through our parent PFA, PTO meetings, PIC meetings, Naviance, and also we are going to send a letter to each of the senior parents explaining this new practice, as well as giving them paperwork to sign off, so that parents would be aware of the expectations for participation, as well as the seniors. Next, I want to get out to the community, because there are many people here that would offer possibilities for our seniors. For example, the MAC, the Middletown Library, the Red Bank YMCA, lunch break. They're always looking for students to participate either on a volunteer basis, a paid basis. We also offer more opportunities now for the career internship programs. So rather than just have to do this outside of the school day, they're now available to do this between the hours of, let's say, 9 and 2. Local businesses will now have a talented pool of seniors available to them that never before was possible. Moving forward, we also want to get out there on all social media platforms as well as print media. So through the Asbury Park Press, Monmouth Journal, Middletown Journal, explaining everything that we want to do here for our seniors. To me, this is a win-win situation. Seniors now can select a course of action that best meets their personal goals and post-secondary goals. Local businesses, again, will have this talented pool of seniors available to work never before between the hours of 7 and 2 if they're highly motivated. And also seniors can pursue a specific research project that would highlight their skills and abilities that would be most beneficial when they apply to colleges. All right, so this is where we're going moving forward. And if anybody has any questions, we're here available to answer them for you.
I have one question.
Yes.
So, would this create any security issues in terms of having a lot of people come in and out of the buildings? You know, I'm guessing right now, sometimes there's like to escape.
We've considered that, Mr. Little. now. We have students that come in and out for tomorrow's teachers and things like that. Vocational programs, dual enrollment. So we have students in and out of the building now. There will probably be a colored lanyard that would identify those students who are in and out of the building. And obviously we would work with security to make sure they're familiarized with those students and the procedures.
I have questions for Kim. From a state policy perspective, if a senior comes into senior year and they had a sufficient credit load for the previous 3 years such that they would not need to fill all of their blocks in order to graduate, what prevents them from leaving when they're done with their day? Let's say they don't have anything in the last block. What prevents them from leaving?
Right now, we're scheduling them for courses.
Everybody has a full schedule.
Right now, that was what Mr. Patrick was kind of alluding to. Right now, our practice has been that we schedule them for every single block, every single day, in spite of the fact that they've already met these requirements.
So I know that there are schools and districts, and my experience is old, but my experience was real, that the high school that I attended, if you were a senior and you did not have a last period class, you were just free to go. Has that been considered rather than sort of dressing it in opportunities, volunteers, and just to say to seniors, this is your first case with a little bit of adult responsibility, and you can go?
That's one of the options I mentioned.
Okay,
we're making this as comprehensive to meet the needs as many learners for all the different scenarios or needs they may have. You know, some students, as Ms. Nicholas said, some students still want to engage in a full load of coursework, and we would not preclude any senior from doing that. There are a handful that are saying, you know what, I'd like to get out one period early because I'd like to participate in one of the projects that Mr. Mormile was referencing, because I still would like to earn some credit for a project. I don't need income, I don't want to do formalized work, but I would like to do a project that benefits the community, benefits a particular passion I have. It's kind of like a dissertation. The capstone is a very common language amongst post-secondary universities. They use that in lieu of dissertation for undergrad. So it would kind of be like jump-starting my research studies as a senior. But the other option is, I think Mr. Kirkpatrick mentioned, maybe I just want to leave early, maybe go to work because I need to earn income, because I need to start saving money because next year I want to go to college and I need to start creating a bank account to afford that. My family may need some extra income. Or maybe I'm so involved, I have, you know, 3 classes every day, plus I do athletics, you know, I'm a 2-season athlete and I'm in clubs, and to come in late every day, to just do a late arrival and be able to come in second block, affords me to be able to get all my work done at night and not be up and then have the stress of getting up so early, and it allows me to get other things done, you know, in that morning before I arrive to school. Because I don't have to earn extra income, and I don't really want extra credit, and I'm not interested in an internship or an additional project, because I'm taking, you know, a couple AP courses, honors courses, and I would just like the extra time to be able to study or sleep or do what's best for my life. So we're trying to keep this as, that's why it's the flex option. The other thing I don't think that we quite hit on, that we talked about, no, Ms. Nicholas kind of did, she talked about, we have some students who already may not be involved in our formalized early college academy. We're starting in freshman year, they're on a very prescribed track. But by sophomore, junior year, because we are a comprehensive K-12 public education, you know, district, we do have limits, you know, to the types of courses we can offer here on our campus. And we max out. And there are some, and I see a parent here tonight, and we've had this discussion, you know, if you're interested in a very specific track, like an art track, we kind of cap out to the level of rigor that we can offer, because there's a very small pool of students who may be interested in a particular subject. But Brookdale offers an undergraduate course that they can enroll in, that they can get a jump start on down that, you know, further down that path. We just don't have the means to do it because we don't have the users to employ the staff members with the capacity to teach it. So we want to provide those students that opportunity as well. And starting next year, because of the predicament we're finding in our trending in terms of course enrollment, you know, we are making some adjustments to how we're offering AP courses. Some AP courses may only be offered in one high school because it's traditionally very under-enrolled. You know, it's hard to sustain AP courses where you have 4 students enrolled in them, you know, in a school. But yet maybe you have 6 in the other school. So together, it's a solid group of students, and we want to give those students that opportunity to take that AP course. So this would allow those students who want to maybe travel over to here to north or there to south, wherever the course is going to be offered, to do that if it's not on their high school specific campus. Because now they can travel safely over to the other campus because they can remove a block of period from their schedule to do so. So we're trying to make it as customizable, for lack of a better word, to each student's unique needs as, you know,
So you would have to drive to school in order to do this, right?
Or have transportation, a means of transportation, yeah.
Most likely you have to drive.
Some kids actually drive each other, you know, there are relationships, but yes.
Any idea what parents think of this? And in terms of the actual likelihood that something's going to happen, that the kids are actually going to go to the classes, or, in other words, the likelihood of that really happening that way, and what parents think in general of having this stuff.
Well, that's part of the parent presentations that are gonna happen now.
Okay, so we don't know what parents.
You're our first audience, they're our first group of parents here and community stakeholders. We know we've heard from the students who are giving us these ideas and listen, they're very motivated students that we have here in Middletown. You know, they don't want to be necessarily limited to the walls of this school. Like, they want to start making their mark on the world in different ways. And we want to give them that opportunity. If it's within the state guidelines and it's within our means, we want to give them those opportunities. But the parents have to also consent to this. So in the end, if the senior wants to do it, there will be a permission slip in a formalized way for parents to have input into
that. I think everything's great, like talking about having last year, going with your senior and that. It sounds like it doesn't have to be a car. So I mean, it's going to be limited, I guess, to those folks.
Yeah.
And also too, in terms of parents, what they want to do.
Yeah, ultimately, again, it's not going to be forced. It won't be forced on anyone. It's just opportunity for those who are, coming to us asking for other ways to meet their needs.
And I think, Mr. Little, it's really an unknown how many students take advantage of this the first year, and how much it grows moving forward.
It's preparing them for post-secondary, but they're going to be on their own and have to make these decisions.
I have a question about the flex. In a lot of internships and even if the students are going out for jobs, the schedules change every day. So how will that work for scheduling other classes?
We won't know until we've been, some of this is going to be, there's going to be restrictions. We're not going to build the master schedule for 1,600 students just based on this. So, seniors who are interested in this, they may be limited, and based on the master schedule, they may come in and change their mind. We have singleton AP courses, and if that's when their internship is, then they're going to have to make a decision.
I was just curious because I like the idea of flexible, but I also know in jobs and internships that sometimes they want you on Tuesdays, sometimes they want you on Wednesdays and Fridays. So how does that fit into the schedule?
So part of the decision-making process.
Is there an option to if they've met the requirement to graduate early?
Yes.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. This is the time for the board to ask questions. The public will be able to ask questions during public comment later on on the agenda.
That's comment though, you can't ask questions during public comment. They
You
won't be
can always
available.
ask a question during public comment.
Will they be available to respond?
That is up to the board.
Can we make a motion for them to ask questions? Why we have the people here?
That's a joke, that was the motion, I'll second that motion.
Yeah,
Just
that was the motion.
just so that we're aware, just so it's not the control process.
Early graduation?
So this week, I'm sorry, will you, was the motion to allow it now or to allow it during public comment?
The motion is to allow them to ask the questions now while the administrators are here.
Okay. Everybody in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
So we do have a board policy that allows for early graduation. And last year, South had a student who graduated in 3 years. But that student did agree to go on and take courses over the summer, and they had to get to 140. Our district policy says 140, the state says 120. So this student did graduate in 3 years.
Because there's still the requirement for 4 years of English and 4
Yes,
years of
that's a big,
So it's that extra English and it's the extra PE and help that some students elect to do as an independent learning opportunity. As in this case, the student did it over the summer between his junior and senior year.
Kind of a related question. Being that you have to have a certain number of courses completed to be eligible for this, of the current junior population at the high schools now, how many would be considered eligible currently? I'm just curious.
Almost all.
All right.
A large majority.
Okay.
Our students are very successful.
Dr. Cartier, you brought up that you might talk to younger kids about how they would earn the right to do this. How would you differentiate between the kids who are earning the right to do this, and then you said at one point that you might also do this for kids who need remedial? So like, you're not earning the right for remedial. So like how?
I brought that up, and I didn't mean remedial in high school. So when our students go on to Brookdale, they have to take the AccuPlacer test.
Right.
And students in this county, across the county, are struggling with that exam. It's an Algebra 1 and it's a reading test, and it is very difficult. You know, there's all different theories as to why students are doing well in this. Some people are saying colleges are a business, so they're making the cut scores high because they want these kids in remedial courses, so they're in their longer pay. I can't speak to that. You know, this is just a theory. But it is a problem, and Brookdale is telling us that the research shows that students in these remedial courses then don't go on to get their 2-year degree. They're tired of being in a class that's not counting towards anything. It doesn't mean that they're not successful in our high schools. It's just based on one test.
Oh, okay.
Brookdale is saying they're not ready to enter. Now, the other thing, and Brookdale is thinking about doing a pilot program next year where the AccuPlacer won't be the test used, and they do a portfolio through all the local high schools on the student's transcript and what other assessments we've used in the buildings.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
So what you would advocate for, if I'm understanding is that the child take the AccuPlacer prior to their senior year?
Yes, junior year.
All children?
Not all children. Anyone who thinks that they're going to go on to Brookdale, maybe after high school.
Just Brookdale children? Anybody on that path to Brookdale?
Probably, yes. We would say take the test junior year, see how you do. If we think you did not, if Brookdale tells us you didn't meet that cut score, you can technically be a Middletown South student, Middletown North student, part-time, go on to Brookdale to take care of these remedial courses, so then when you graduate from our high schools, you're ready to enter the community college.
I just want to say I'm on that committee for the county, working with Dr. Stout and Brookdale, and on not only portfolio, but also instead of the AccuPlacer, the SAT as well, which four-year colleges regularly assist. And also the AccuPlacer could also impact students that were going to enter the military as well, and the military option for education. So maybe ROTC. So that would provide, which is, you know, a great competition strategy, and not only getting career readiness skills, but also have an opportunity to pay for that college experience.
This sounds like it's a non-vocational, serious academic pursuit of learning through independent individual research. It seems to me that such a student should be doing the level of independent research in a general topic, in a specific subject matter that may involve an issue, and that the student is doing a lot of library work, computer work to document a research paper that the student, as a teacher in a seminar class, will present to the other students who are also doing research, reading and writing, to do the same as every student, and there has to be one professor that makes 12 students. That's the typical seminar, and you seem to have described it. So what's the finished byproduct of the student research, individual, independent student? What is the byproduct that comes from him when he presents his discovered knowledge?
You're describing our capstone option, which is a full year option. So the student does all the things that you suggested, all that research over the course of the school year, based on a problem that he or she is interested, has passion in. The finished product could be a paper where that problem is addressed, and then a presentation under the facilitation of the teacher, the cooperating teacher, to some other faculty members, a guidance counselor, and maybe another student, where that problem is presented.
And a seminar is a seminary. A seminary is a nursery. So these are nursling learners in this program.
About for the kids who might use the flex option and go to Brookdale, either as a dual enrollment or as a supplementary thing based on their AccuPlacement scores, do they have to pay to go to Brookdale, or is that somehow folded into their public education now?
They pay.
They pay, okay.
And that is an option right now in our course selection handbook. However, because our schedule requires students to be in session for a full day right now, our current practice, they oftentimes, our schedule doesn't align with the hours or the times Brookdale courses are offered. So it prevents them being able to act on that option. So we're trying to eliminate those barriers for them.
Would the kids either be going in late or leaving early, or is there a possibility some kid might be able to do both?
Might be both.
Might be both.
Okay.
What, like they might have block 2 English, be around for advisory, and then have block 5 PE. So they might not have a scheduled class block 1 or 6. So
it's college then.
Right, exactly.
Be in and out.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for your time. Appreciate it. I know you have early days tomorrow. Speaking of early days tomorrow, Mr. Suyak, why don't you come on up next? We'll come back to the curriculum. Go to technology.
Good evening. I have a few items for information on for the workshop this evening. The first one is the 2018-2019 MPS internship. This past summer, we ran a very successful internship with some students from North and South. And in our administrative technology meetings, as well as in our previous workshop, we discussed extending that during the course of the school year. Each of our high schools run a course called the Senior Career Seminar course, where one of the requirements of the course is to take part in an internship. So I was contacted by the teachers in the fall. I reached out to them back in December, met with a few students, and we put together some guidelines for internship goals and responsibilities. The students are very eager to start working with us. These are Sweet College students who are looking to move into the field of technology. The students will be starting with us in the week January 28th, and they will be involved in projects in a number of our schools, not just their home school. Some of the projects that will be involved in are obviously Chromebook deployment and maintenance, software deployment, website, digital communications, assessment device prep, inventory management, and you will also be assisting with some NJ Future Ready initiatives as well. The second item I have is uninterruptible power supplies, or UPSs, installations for secondary schools. In last month's meeting, I discussed how we were having some power issues with some of our camera servers in the secondary schools because of faulty power, power outages. Since then, UPSs were ordered, delivered, and installed yesterday with minimal downtime. So now each camera server has a dedicated backup battery supply. So what that means is when the power goes out, the battery will take over. If the power does not come back on before that battery diminishes, it will perform a proper shutdown of the device, so therefore. Sorry. The third item I have is district file server upgrades. Over the course of the last 2 months, we've been upgrading a number of our file servers. We have 20 in total that are strictly data file servers in all of our schools. All these upgrades have to be done off hours to minimize downtime for students and staff. So we took advantage of the winter break this year and finalized the last of these 20 servers. The move to the new operating system, which is Windows Server 2016, it's the most recent non-beta version, provides us better security on them. It reduces the amount of total overall space needed for the drives and for the drive storage because of deduplication, and it has its own Windows Defender embedded into it to protect to add additional security as well. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I just have a question on something that's not on your agenda. In New Jersey School Board's update, it says that there's a $40 million in grants for broadband. Would we be participating in that?
Yeah, we do every year. It's the E-rate, FCC E-rate program, and Middletown has been taking part of it every year. There's two categories. There's category one, which is services, which basically you fund us 40% on our telecommunications. Every year we apply, and every year we receive those benefits. Category two is for internal connections, and historically we were not funded for that. Normally the funding was going to districts with a higher free or reduced rate than Middletown. Over the last few years, they have been turning and funding a little more. So this year we did apply for funding. We applied for upgrading our wireless access network, which is kind of antiquated. We're 8 to 10 years old on that. So we did apply for that. We've also applied for additional batteries and backups that are considered E-rate eligible.
It just seems to be making a big deal about the $40 million. So I'm just curious if there was something more that we could apply for than we had in the past.
The reason it's been publicized this year is because this is the last year that the FCC is guaranteeing that this program will be funded. Next year, they don't know if they're going to continue funding Category 2 services. So while this funding was available all these years, and we have applied in the past, it's more public this year because they're telling everyone that this money may not be there next year. I sat down with Ms. Gallagher and Mr. Rosa, and we discussed, George, we discussed different projects that this funding could be used for. Middletown has been so progressive that we have put a lot of these projects in place before funding was even available. Like, I give you an example. Middletown had a a dark fiber network connecting all the schools years before it was even funded. So this is more of a funding initiative to kind of have districts who are not up to speed kind of caught up.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just curious because it just keeps coming out every other day in the email.
That was actually our E-rate item under finance, so we did want to talk to the board about that, so thanks for bringing that up.
Wait for the time, student services.
Good evening. We're going to be recommending 39 students for home instruction. We have one student we're recommending for an out-of-district placement. We have 4 programs that we're recommending for home instruction for students who are hospitalized at different times throughout the year. Those are placements that are done without, usually done privately. Our parent presentation last week, we had about a handful of parents. That is going to be added to the website for parents who weren't able to make it to have that opportunity. We are going to be looking to do a presentation later in the school year with the curriculum department regarding intervention and referral process. We have the preschool open house tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at New Monmouth School. We have the Slam Dunk Autism Challenge here at High School North this Saturday, starting at 9:30, and we'll be going till 5:30. There will be several different teams from the Shore Conference that will be playing each other. I think we have number 3, Manchester, playing another district from, I think, up northern Jersey. So that'll be one of the key programs. We have our intramural basketball program for our students at High School South. It'll be against Freehold Township, and the game is going to be February 7th at around 5:45. We also have been doing annually where we invite board members to look at observe our special class programs at all of our schools that have those programs. So we'll be sending out dates to invite you to observe our programs and to see some of our students and how successful they are. Okay.
Thank you.
Curriculum.
Supervisors, directors, whole host of positions
Can you hear me now? Oh, yeah. Right before the winter break, I received an email from Janet Gillette, who's the lady who runs the recreation department for the township at Horsey Park, sharing with me that they were very excited about the culminating activity for our brand new 5th grade Horsey Park program. You might recall that we, when the Next Generation Science Standards came in, we updated in particular the 5th grade program because the prior program was not supported by the new standards. So the new program, which is called Web of Life, created by, I'm trying to think of the woman's name, it's escaping me right now, she's terrific, at Horsey Park. And she sent to us a website of Web of Life with all the pictures that were taken by the students, for the students, the data they collected, the patterns they developed, and they shared that with all the 5th grade students, teachers, so that they could share it with parents, etc. So I gave you the link to that website on your committee report agenda, so I'd like you to take a look at it and see, and I just want you to know it's going very well. Okay, Web of Life. Second item.
This is on the agenda, right? Yeah, let me just say. We wanted to give a quick update. We had, I know some of you had a shared service meeting last night and you were unable to attend, but I know some of you had spouse members who attended our AP Parent Information Night here at High School North. We were really excited to turn around at one point and see that the auditorium, probably one of our best turnouts yet for an information fair, although I will say I think our Pathway and Academy Night was also really well attended this year. So we're so grateful that parents and students have such an interest in our programs and our offerings and are really looking to join with us in giving them all the options that they desire. The night went really well. I'm so grateful to our students who served on the panel. Was anybody there last night? They did a great job. The students did a great job. We didn't even know what the questions were going to be because the supervisors and the directors tried a new thing where they let the parents and the kids type in their questions to a Google in real time, so we didn't even know how to prep them. They were a little nervous about that, but they handled everything really well, and they shed light that we would never be able to offer as adults. So we were really grateful for them. We have the intent, as we've been discussing in the board curriculum committee, as it's been an evolving topic, and we've been kind of like here and there touching on it, starting with our report out of our AP scores back in September to the board. There's been a concern with the trending in lower enrollment in our overall AP courses. We know that there's competition with dual enrollment, so we know there's a lot of factors and reasons for that happening, and we've been exploring those. We've partnered with other districts, with leading researchers on this topic of AP coursework and student participation in that. We've been meeting with faculty several times. The AP teachers, we started with them, and then the whole high school faculties between both schools in December. We did a workshop with them as well. And really, the goal of our work has been to create more opportunity for students starting in younger grades, so as early as 9th grade, which will be a new concept for us here in Middletown, to have access to being able to register for AP courses. Dr. Cartier brought back an idea from a workshop that she attended, and Mr. Virginio jumped all over it, which was we did a scan of our current 8th graders' academic profiles, and using research-backed evidence, suggested evidence, we identified students who would have real potential to do well as 9th graders in an AP course. Individual letters were sent out to some of those students, encouraging them to come to the information night with their parents because we saw potential in them, but every student was notified. We did phone blasts. So we're really trying to be more inclusive and begin access to those courses at a younger age when ready. Research shows that freshmen do just as well and sometimes even better than their sophomore, junior, and senior counterparts when it comes to their success on the final AP exam and earning scores that allow them to receive college credit. So the trend worldwide, not even within New Jersey or in our country, but worldwide, has been to expand that opportunity to younger students in the high school years. So that was really the goal of it. You know that one of the other things we've been tackling is also the decline in participation in just the end of course AP exam itself that we're also facing. Currently, just looking at the 19 or so high school districts in the county, unfortunately our participation rate is number about 15. Only higher than the participation rate of, I believe it's Neptune, Keensburg, Asbury Park, and Keyport. So we're really trying to look at our current practices and come up with ways to encourage students to take advantage of the opportunity to earn the college credit, because that's like the main driver. That was the original intended purpose of the creation of the AP program by College Boards, was to give students who are ready to excel in rigorous courses the ability to earn college credit. We've talked about, you know, how to better improve our standings, our high school standings, and that's a factor. You know, student participation in AP coursework is a factor, and their scores and their participation in the exam. So one of the things we talked about last night was the expectation that if you enroll in a course, you're committed to what the College Board actually says on their site, which is the end of course exam. It all leads up to, that's like the final culminating piece of it, is to participate in that AP exam. There is a cost to the exam. We all know it's $95. So depending on circumstances, I know Mr. Virginio, the question was asked last night, or I think it came up, you know, how will that be accommodated, you know, like, is that requirement, how would that requirement be handled if there are other situations? And I think he explained that right now we're exploring the fact that there are going to be extenuating circumstances, and there are going to be potential financial hardships, or other, you know, there's always a time, you can't predict them all, what those extenuating circumstances may be. So we are currently exploring what those situations are. Right now, we already have resources in place. Our goal is never to deny any student who wants access to this course or this curriculum or the ability to take this exam, not give them that opportunity. Right now, the College Board waives the fee for the $95 exam for any free and reduced lunch eligible students. We as a district have also, the schools have been supporting students who maybe don't qualify or are noted as eligible, you know, free and reduced lunch eligible, but have other hardships. We will continue to find the ways and the means to do that and to consider other circumstances. We didn't elaborate on that last night because every kid is going to come with a different scenario or situation. We didn't want to highlight on the negatives. We want to try to get kids to be involved. You know, one of the things that we face is we know automatically, this was an easy one to highlight, and we used this as an example last night, which was some of our AP courses can also be taken for dual enrollment. And some students prefer, and families prefer, to pay the approximate $175 to have the college issue you a transcript with the credits rather than pay the $95 a reduced rate, but carries more risk of waiting to do well on one exam. Because if you just wait to take the AP test, you're kind of banking on doing well in that one moment to have the potential to be issued the credits. So if your family chooses to go the dual enrollment route for that course, because that particular course may give you both options, then you wouldn't have to take the AP exam. And Mr. Virginio gave that as one example last night. So that's something that we're continuing to talk about. I know the students this morning had a conversation, gave some feedback to Dr. George that we've taken into consideration. We've received some questions from some parents, and we continue to evaluate the different scenarios or circumstances that may arise. Because again, our intention with this, it was really a good intention. It was to be more inclusive and to get more students involved. We certainly don't want to put up additional barriers, but we do want to reinforce that participation in the end of course exam is it's an expectation of the College Board. I mean, it's, you know, that was the whole point of the program at its inception. So we're trying to give validity to that course and that process.
Mrs. Speakers, I have a question. I actually have a bunch of questions, but I'll go one at a time. Going back to something you had mentioned about our participation rate versus the enrollment rate in the AP courses, what was the average, and you may not have this answer, but I think it's important, what was the average class grade of the non-participants in the exam?
I don't have the class grades off the top of my head.
But do we have access to that? Because it would seem to me that if you are enrolled in an AP course and you find that it's more challenging than you anticipated, you find that the rigor of college level course is not quite what you anticipated, and you get to February, March, I think, when you have to enroll for the test, or maybe it's a little, I can't remember. Okay, so at that point, and you're not feeling it. Yeah, right, but so it's October, you're 2 months into your class, you're not feeling it, and you decide not to enroll. That might be a good idea rather than to get a 1 or 2 on the exam. So I'm curious how many of these kids who are not taking the AP exam either felt they wouldn't have done well or how they finished in that class. I think that's an important metric to know, to understand what the real problem might be. Because my feeling is that whether it's us or whether it's parents or whatever, they push their kids into AP courses. And, again, going back 25 years, having taken AP courses, they're taught like college courses. And I don't know that every sophomore, junior, maybe freshman coming up is ready for that sort of rigor and what's expected of them on a week-by-week basis and what's going to be expected of them in that exam room. So I'm just worried that for whatever we're chasing as a school district, it might not be beneficial for these kids. It might be more beneficial for them to take regular courses, and then as they learn how to be high school students, we're almost asking these kids to learn how to be college students while they're learning how to be high school students. Because you have to learn how to be a high school student. We're giving them all this freedom with block scheduling. We're talking about giving them more freedom as they become seniors. And now we're also saying, oh, by the way, you should also learn to become a college student as a freshman. So that's, I have a lot of reservations.
If I could just add in on that, a couple of things. We've done a lot of research, and we've actually had our high school staff meet with a nationally renowned expert who's participating in the latest research, Will Smith. Will was previously the principal of Raritan High School, which ranks #1 in participation for the county. And I think that's interesting. It's Raritan High School, not Rumson. And theirs is more than double the participation rate as ours. A lot of research was presented to us. Students, first of all, to your point, if we set the expectation, and from our perspective, rightly so, that on the entrance, on the way in, this is a college level class, and there's an assessment appropriately at the end of this that's going to reflect this. This could help us at the beginning of the year set realistic expectations for sectioning. Right now, we have students that begin the year in AP and then transition out of AP into college prep, having a significant impact on the class sizes of that college prep class. And then what that does is drive up the college prep class student to teacher ratio. And the data shows us year after year this happens. So setting that expectation that an expectation for advanced placement courses is to participate in that assessment. We find from all the research, the #1 predictor of success is the student deciding that they want to take the course. So if a student is committed to the course from start to finish, and the assessments that appropriately are scheduled with the course, they're most likely to be successful. To your point though, of 1 and 2s, the data, the research is really interesting on that as well. So even students that get a 1 or a 2 on the exam are more likely, significantly more likely to graduate college than their counterparts. This is an initiative for us to be more inclusive, not less inclusive. And for the student that is not committed to that rigor, setting that clear expectation at the start allows us as an administrative team and a building level administration to appropriately set sectioning so it doesn't adversely impact their college prep counterparts. I just wanted to add that because those are important points.
I don't, when you say college prep, I mean, are these classes that have the same weighting in terms of their, their rankings and things like that? I mean, these AP courses probably carry, I'm guessing, a little bit more credit for high school, right? 2, if somebody decides they don't want to take it because of their grades, I don't know why we care, first of all. Second,
I get, if some kid goes in there and they feel like it's overwhelmed, I think forcing them to keep doing it might be not the right answer.
No, we're
That's
suggesting.
what you're saying, because they can't.
No,
they can't
we're
transfer it.
suggesting the expectation coming in with taking the assessment, it's a more realistic commitment to the course. Not that they could still go to transfer.
You're talking about
They'd be like, just the research shows that they're less likely to
You're
transfer.
talking about, what, 15, 16-year-olds? And not only that, but I mean, do we have an idea that it's mostly like the underclassmen who don't go through with it, or is it the seniors? Like, in other words, is there like a breakout, like saying sophomores would take it and say, listen, I got 2 years left in college, and I don't really feel like taking this test, or a senior might have fear that if I get a 2 on this, it's going to sit up in the ether, you know, that I have like a 2 grade. You know, I feel like we're maybe putting too much emphasis on it. No, I'm just asking, I know you have it, I haven't, so I'm asking.
So that's why, speaking from
Can you hear me? Oh, yeah, sorry. It automatically goes off, you know that. Okay, it's new. For 10 years, we report out to the board on the AP scores, as you know. When they come in July, we start preparing reports for the directors and the supervisors for each of the departments. And one of the things we report out on every year is the number of students enrolled in each course and the number of students who took the test in each course. And every year I get that question, how come so few students are taking the test? And it's a good question when you go back to the students. Some of the reasons are valid, but others are more like, well, I just didn't want to give seniors primarily. And some juniors that are saying, no, I'm not going to take the test. I'm a senior, I'm done. You know, I got into college. Already, they've already been accepted or whatever. And that is a concern because it's not good for the school district, that kind of reputation for the number of kids who actually participate in the college boards. The College Board approves our syllabus for each and every course. So we are teaching that syllabus, and then the students don't take the test that they've been preparing them for all year, which was the point of the course in the first place. So it is a concern, a legitimate concern. I understand why we've been asked that question every year. So we do want to try to encourage higher participation.
I just want to add one very small thing. I think Mrs. Peak has covered it, but I want to make sure that it comes through loud and clear. Having students have the option to start in their freshman year to take some AP courses will alleviate what, to me, is almost heartbreaking to see juniors and seniors with 5, 6, and 7 AP courses on their schedule all in 1 year. And this would give them the opportunity to stagger those courses and to not have them all come crashing down on them in their last 2 years of high school. We want kids to enjoy their high school experience and not have it so high stakes in those last 2 years. And this way they'll be building their familiarity with some of the less strenuous AP courses. They'll be building they'll be building their familiarity with how an AP course runs with those that don't have a prerequisite. And what we really want to do is we want to make sure that students are taking full advantage of the advisory period during the high school, because we absolutely know that our teachers were commended left and right by students last night as far as the help they give students in the AP courses when they need support. So we want that that advisory block to be utilized. They're there, and that's the perfect time for them to go to those teachers and get help. We also, thinking in terms of having possibly freshmen taking AP courses, are diverting some of our summer program money to be used in the spring so that we can hire teachers to actually have AP prep courses run here in the district in the month before the AP exam to give them the most support that we possibly can. And this would be not during school hours, so we would actually be paying teachers to come in and do that extra prep work with them.
Do we have equivalent courses though that are not test driven?
I'm sorry?
In other words, if I went to AP, whatever, is there another class that has the same kind of weight, like an honors class of some sort, that gives the same sort of weight and same sort of like, in other words, are the APs the only avenue that you can do certain things?
AP is the avenue to get the highest rank weighted course.
All right, so that's probably part of what.
But remember, there are some AP courses that have a dual enrollment in Seton Hall, Fairleigh Dickinson, Rider, and if you take that AP course and do it as a dual enrollment course, you don't have to take the AP exam. You pay the minimal tuition, which is a very reduced rate,
to that college or university, and you get a transcript with those 3 or 6 or however many credits you've enrolled in, and they're good to go.
I think that's the incentive right there, though. Like, I don't have an equivalent course that doesn't have an AP test attached to it. I'm sort of trying to figure out how to get my ranking, or maybe there's a topic that I like, I find challenging. I know it was like 3,000 years ago when I did that, but I remember that AP courses, unfortunately, had the same weight as the honors courses, I think. So it was different if you wanted to take the test for credit. So I think it's a lot more AP tests now. So we don't have other options. I don't know how we tell kids they can't do it. And everyone has strategies about how they want to go to college. So strategy might be, I decide not to take the test, but I want to wait, or I want the challenge because I want to try to
Right. So two things on that. Number one, the rigor course is attached to the expectation that you're going to complete the assessment at the end of it. So I understand that the weighted grade, and I'll allow the curriculum people to talk about weighted versus unweighted, because most Tier 1 universities don't really accept a weighted GPA. They accept a straight GPA, although they expect participation in high-level courses. Those high-level courses can be defined as dual enrollment, in which case you wouldn't have to take the test, or AP, when the expectation is with AP, and that's why you're getting that additional weighted grade, is that you're going to take the test. So one of those two things come into play. I think it's important for us, and we're committed to this, for any form of financial hardship, and I think this is the real discussion for the board, we have to be committed to an option for financial hardship that is fair and appropriate, so that no one, and I've been assured by both high schools, that no one is ever not provided for financial hardship, however they deem it, the opportunity to take that test. We have always had something in place so that no high school student is turned away from that. Is that not correct? So let's talk about the weighted versus unweighted to answer the second part of your question.
So,
I can think the first time I remember being actively engaged in this conversation was right here in this room about 3 years ago when we introduced the idea of the Early College Academy, and parents were concerned at that point, this is a lot of rigorous courses. What if my student doesn't do well? It's going to affect their GPA. If they're worried about getting a B. So we've been in real deep conversations with college recruiters and admissions officers. Mrs. Nicholas, Mr. Mormile, the principals, us here. And the reality is, as Dr. George said, Tier 1 school universities automatically unweight your core courses. They go by your transcript, and they don't look at the GPA that necessarily the school issues on that transcript or that you self-report. They go and they strip it down because they know, they've caught on that students and families are trying to, as you said, play some sort of, odds.
To go one step further, in schools like Ivy Leagues, whether or not you participate might be actually in the final exam part of the consideration by the committee, and I know this firsthand, that as to whether or not you get accepted. It's going to come up in the questioning for some Tier 1 universities, which our kids regularly get accepted into, as to whether or not you participated. So some you might meet all the academic criteria, but for Ivies, there's still an interview process before you're accepted. And part of that interview process, this is the questioning that takes place in that interview process.
So even the state universities, and I don't want to say even, my own son goes to Montclair, right, he's a freshman, they unweight now. So it's not just the Tier 1s anymore, it's down the line. They strip down the weighting. We're trying to better inform our parents, our students, so they can make informed decisions. So, and that's something that we talked about last night. Like, these are the reasons why AP, to your point, Mr. DeFranco, these are the reasons why AP may be attractive. And if these are your reasons, you might want to reconsider them. So if things like trying to augment a transcript or take a class with a friend, those may not necessarily be the best reasons for any student to participate, because
colleges are looking at those transcripts differently now, and we want everyone to be aware of that.
They still do class ranks, right?
No?
We don't do
Oh,
class rankings.
do we? Oh, yes.
So I'm
To report, yes.
Well, that's what I'm saying, we come into the class ranks, right? So you're trying to be, student, right? So now that, again, the college may strip it down, or the make it to the students that's there. But, you know, again, class rankings are not their problem. Yes,
But in talking to the college admissions officers, most recently last year, I spoke to someone at University, I want to say TCMJ because that's what I knew it as, but the College of New Jersey. High schools are also tiered, and that is how weight is also applied to your GPA. So for example, if you go to Allied Health and you graduate from Allied Health, probably every student 1 through, I don't know how many are in a class, graduating class there, 60, could potentially be a valedictorian, a salutatorian in their traditional homes, what would have been their home school. So the colleges actually critically evaluate your rank, even based upon the reputation or what they assign a score to as your high school. So we're trying to do due diligence to make sure that the reputations and the stature of our high schools remains high for our students.
So I know that we beat this topic up, and I appreciate the depth on this. I just, two things. I know that it helps our stature to have participation rate high. Participation rate is a ratio, and I'm concerned that we're chasing the denominator without focusing on increasing the numerator. So expanding access to AP increases that denominator, but I'm not totally convinced that we understand about the numerator. My second point, though, is that in general, if we are going to require our students to take the AP exam as part of enrollment in an AP course, then I believe that the school district should pay the $95 per student, because that said, I firmly do not believe that we should require them to take it, nor do I believe the school district should pay for the money. We pay for our high school education. We are required to provide an efficient and thorough education to our students. We are not required to fund college credits. I'm very happy that we can get 3 credits each. If they get a 4 or 5, that's fantastic, but I don't believe that's the role of the board to fund. If we require it, then I think it does become our responsibility, and that's a whole different question. But that's where this discussion is going, so rather than beat around the bush, that's my position on that.
That was the next step for discussion at the board curriculum committee. We got kind of that far, you know, in talking about what the data is showing us and what we're understanding and some of the steps we're trying to take to create, to address the questions that have come up about the data.
I have a question. In the beginning, you said that when we did statistics of all the different schools and what we ranked right above that 2 key. And Dr. George, you said Raritan was above us. They were number 1
in the county, Rumson number 2.
And they pay for their students to take the test?
I believe, I don't know about right now, I know in the past they did. Rumson, I don't believe Rumson's Fairhaven for that. Sorry, we can't keep track.
Rumson does not, however, without that, they have, I'm going to say the statistic, but please don't quote me, because I was doing some research that I believe they have about 92% of the students who are enrolled in AP courses take the test.
I don't want to get
They don't
into
get
politically correct right now. I just like you to look at the different schools and see if they pay for their students to take the test.
We have, because that was actually something we had considered.
But is that what you're getting at, bottom line, is it 8?
Well, maybe a couple months ago, but with more recent budget challenges, we're trying to think differently.
But that's bottom line, is that's how they're getting their kids to take the test.
Raritan in particular, not some of the other schools.
That's all I want to
Yes.
see, but everything you say, I get more kids to take it, I'm doing it this way, that way.
That's the answer. 8.
One comment, Mr. DeFranco before mentioned that he wasn't certain that underclassmen were ready or they should participate in AP courses. And as Mrs. O'Hagan had said before, when I saw that freshmen could participate in it, I was really excited because I thought how nice to give children the opportunity to spread out the number of AP courses that would take over 4 years, rather than pile them up as juniors and seniors while they're worrying about SATs and jobs and everything else. The other thing is I asked my husband to weigh in, because he's a high school teacher, because I've seen it all over Facebook. I said, you know, what do you think about the AP courses? And I remember from when I was young, a lot of the course time is spent prepping for the actual exam, taking practice tests, studying. So me personally, I wouldn't want my daughter to participate in a class where a large portion of that class time is spent prepping for a test that they're not taking. I would feel that that would be counterproductive.
And that's the nature of the AP course, because that's what it was intended. The final outcome, they kind of worked, designed backwards. The intent is to get the kids eligible, the students eligible for the college credit. So how do we get there? That's why it's different from a traditional high school course. You know, we don't write those syllabus. You know, it's not our curriculum. We adopt them from the College Board.
The regular classwork is directly connected to the exam by standard, and there are regular weekly formative assessments, most of which that are taken online. And another part about the test that we had talked about, that, you know, listen, I'm not the expert. The high school guidance teachers, our administrators, they're working in the content, they're the experts. But what I do know is that the formative assessments add up to a summative test, and the expectation right from the standards is to teach for mastery. So as a former high school principal, and also as a father of 4 students who participated pretty extensively in advanced placement testing and benefited with college credits from it, at the end of the day, it's not a cram at the end of this like it was when we were kids, or like it used to be. Because since we're attacking this through the curriculum and a formative assessment, what happens at the end is that we've taught to mastery and they're prepared to the test. Now, there are Saturday prep sessions or Thursday prep sessions. There are some cheerleading that goes on, and you know, everybody's really part of that academic focus in preparation for that test. But I think that's also a really important, at least it was for my children, it was an important part of, and I've seen for other children, it's an important part of the process, preparing with an end goal, an academic end goal that they're working for. The other piece about this, because we're talking about finances, that's really important, is that this has an impact on every other student in the building. Because at the end of the day, we only, based on the number of students we have only so many teachers for X number of students. And the days where we can equitably support having advanced placement courses with significant less students than COPS prep and honors courses, because we have a competition strategy that we want to get a higher weighted A, it's just not equitable. It's not fair from my perspective.
And this was a process for many of us, because you've heard us all stand up here and kind of diminish, you know, test results, and we don't, you know, it's not all about test scores, and so it was a process for us to also go through this journey to wrap our heads around, but this is a unique and different program. And the purpose here is to prepare them. That's the whole goal of this program. You know, that was the intended purpose when it was created by the College Board, was to prepare them to pass this exam, to make them eligible for those credits, to get a score that makes them eligible. So we've heard from students in student forums who are committed to that process, and they're taking that course for that. Remember, I talked, there's a slide, and we're going to share the presentation with you all, as well as the community. We're going to put it up, we just didn't get a chance today. You know, the reasons to take an AP course and reasons to realize maybe it's not for you. The students who are really doing it for the right reasons, they want that curriculum to be taught, and they want the fidelity of the program where those formative assessments are being given, and that test prep is included in a natural daily occurrence or questions they're seeing throughout the year, and not just at the end, and they're cramming at the end and trying to prepare for the test. So we want to give our teachers and our students who are committed to that process and the intended purpose, that experience.
Can I see something? Besides, okay, if we're gonna go this way, and we're gonna look to maybe, this is a suggestion that might be coming down on pay for these classes. Can we look into what the other schools are doing as far as how are they raising the funds to pay for these classes? Because we do have a budgetary problem. So how do other schools, what is Raritan doing to get funds?
It's in their budget. Other districts.
Everybody has it in their budget?
No, not, I'm only familiar with Raritan High School, who the district budgets for monies to pay for all the AP tests. There are others who I am aware of who budget a certain pool of money, and dependent on the score the students receive, if it's college credit bearing a score, so typically a 3 or higher, they can get reimbursed for the cost. A lot of different districts have different, some districts require it, and there's no expense incurred on the district. It's just it's incurred by the family, and it's an expectation, a requirement.
Is there such a thing as...
Right. Some pay for one test. If you go more than one, we've gotten a lot of different answers.
Is there any kind of program out there where these kids could fundraise or do something to get something? I don't know. This is very expensive.
We're going to continue that conversation.
Yeah, and just one other point on that. I know for another thing that we talked about and what the research says, a lot of people participate in programs in preparation for the SAT, starting those advanced placement courses earlier, and participation with full fidelity in those programs, including the tests. The research says they're less likely to need that $1,500 program on the outside because they've been prepared with fidelity on the inside.
We actually had some students last night speak to that from their own experience. That participation in this program and taking these tests afforded me to, gave me the opportunity to do better naturally, as part of my studies on my SATs. So it's a strong program. It really prepares you for that deep analysis of literature and cold reads and written responses, and the math, I was going to say, don't worry, Mrs. Crusoe, and the math AP courses really prepare you for what you see on those ACT, SAT type tests, those high-stake tests.
Kim, I apologize if you answered this already, but what would you suggest for a student who wants to take an AP course, but they don't want to take the test, and there's no comparable class?
Off the top of my head, the only one there are some social studies, history, AP courses that are very unique and concentrated. For example, AP European history, okay, or human geography. Aside from those, and I think physics, we do offer honors courses that are comparable, in our district as part of our curriculum. Like we have honors probability and statistics. We have, the honors English.
One district, they don't take the test instead of making credit. Doesn't take the test, they don't give the AP credit, we minus credit.
Because they didn't fulfill the course.
So we obviously, we're going to do, cannot hear you. I'm sorry, we can't hear you. I'll say that again.
We've been surveying numerous districts to find out what they do, and 2 districts at this point have told us that if a student takes the class but does not take the test, they change the credit they give them and give them honors credit instead of AP credit.
So that's something that we've been discussing.
So,
That gets around the game.
Yeah. But they might be taking it because they want the AP rank. But it's
You want the credit, you gotta take the test.
Yeah.
Right. So that's something that we've also been, it's a conversation that will continue at next month's curriculum committee meeting, and amongst all the administrators and with the students. Last night, listen, you know us, we like to be transparent.
in this process, we wanted to bring this out. We wanted to bring this information to the light, because if we didn't last night and we just generated interest, and then 2 months from now we said, oh, by the way, you know, the expectation is you're gonna have to take the test, that wouldn't be fair to parents or students. So we wanted to start this process earlier, to get feedback, to think of, you know, to think of circumstances that might present a challenge, so that, because we don't know them all, so that we could work with families and students.
That option, just to point out with my meetings, I just had one today with students from Middletown South. I'll be meeting next week at Middletown North. I regularly meet with the students. What we've discussed and brought to the attention from the students' perspective, as far as the rigor of the course between the honors and advanced placement, is very, very similar. Oftentimes we're talking about the same teacher. Kids are coming back to us saying, hey, listen, if I had known that I was going to be doing this much work for an honors course, I would have just taken the AP course, and I would have just taken the test. I took the honors course thinking that it would be less work. So that's just some of the feedback we get from the kids. Again, this is a transparent process. We're not drawing a line in the sand. We're telling you this is where we are right now. So you know, that's something for us to consider, and we appreciate the feedback from the board, and we'll appreciate the feedback from the public when it comes to public comment. So let's move on.
Coming full circle, remember the name of the lady who created the Web of Life program? I wanted to get credit. Her name is Danielle Rosinski at Forsyth Park.
Thank you.
That's a good question. Will these administrators be here at public comment as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we don't.
Yeah, this is central office team.
Thank you.
Right, fine. Finance.
Finance.
allowable under the state regulations to raise the tax levy. The amount that we did not raise in tax levy becomes bank cap, which is then available for future budgets carried forward for 3 years. So as we prepare the 1920 budget, we have $1,059,000 available if needed for banked cap. If it's not utilized in this next year, it carries forward for 2 more years and then it expires if not utilized. Just to remind everyone too that we did change our budget for the current year back in July when we were informed by the state that our state aid for the current year was being reduced after we had prepared and finalized our budget and had it approved. As we did those cuts to this year's budget, which was totaling almost $1.2 million, the tax levy that we had in this year's budget did not change. Those changes were absorbed into the current year budget. The board approved those budget revisions that were basically to instructional and security personnel and the deferral of curricular updates for the current year. We will be looking at those curricular updates to be included in the 1920 budget. So again, it wasn't a cancellation, it was a deferral. But we just wanted to remind everyone that the tax levy had remained unchanged even though our budget had been cut. So some key financial drivers for this year's or the upcoming budget. One will be state aid. Based on the projected 7-year impact of S2, we estimate that our state aid will drop an additional $400,000 or so. We don't have the exact number. We can only go by projections that have been shown in various sources. But also what goes into that is our enrollment, and they base our state aid on our enrollment as well. We will not know our state aid allocation until 48 hours after the governor's budget address, which is normally at the end of February. Last year we didn't get our state aid number until mid-March. There was a additional time put into doing the budget and the allocations, so it was a little bit delayed. We don't know if that will happen again this year, but we are expecting to hear hopefully by the end of February. Going back to the issue of enrollment, and the reason we're bringing that up is because this may or may not impact will impact our state aid for the upcoming year. So in addition to the planned cuts that were in S2, your state aid is also, among other factors, but one of the larger factors that drives the amount is your enrollment. So what we wanted to show everybody is the enrollment that is being utilized to calculate the state aid. This is right from our state aid worksheet that we get from the state. And going back to 2011 up until 2018, those are the enrollments that were reported on our ASSA, which we do on October 15th every year. That's the application for state school aid. So the reason that this is significant this year is, as you can see, the earlier years in this chart are higher than what we are at now. We were over 10,000 students in 2011. We're now at 9425 for resident enrollment. And the state will use a 5-year rolling average of these numbers to calculate our aid. So as we enter into this next budget cycle, the 5 years that will be utilized will now not include any of those 10,000, over 10,000 enrollment years. So it may, cause our aid to downtick a little bit more because the average will drop a little bit more. So, excess surplus is something that we talk about when we do the budget, and just for those of you who may not know, excess surplus is determined at the end of each of our fiscal years, and what it is any surplus that is generated by the budget if we're able to save funds in a current budget that will reduce our expenses, our expected expenses for the year. That if that results in a fund balance, it's over the 2% of our operating budget, which is allowable by law. That is considered excess surplus, and those funds then get utilized in a future budget. For the end of the just closed fiscal year, June 30th, 2018, we did not generate any excess surplus, so that amount is zero. So as we had shown in previous budgets, the utilization of excess surplus funds to utilize as a revenue in our budget, we will not have that as a revenue source for this year. So for the current year, we have about $537,000 in this budget as a revenue from excess surplus. So that revenue will not be there, so that's $500,000 that we will now have to account for that we don't have as well. Federal and state grants is another source that we depend on to fund certain expenses in our district. The large ones that we get are our IDEA and our ESCA funds. We have the allocations there. In IDEA, we got about $2.8 million for the current year and about $300,000 in ESCA. We don't know what those allocations will be for next year. We use estimates when we prepare the budget, and then we count on that to fund certain expenses. But again, that's an estimate. We always need to be somewhat conservative. If we overestimate what those funds will be, then we'll be left without a funding source for expenses that we were counting on.
Amy? I'm sorry, Bonnie. Can you shift a little this way because it's a little harder to hear you over here? And can you shift a little bit more this way, towards the board?
Okay, sure.
Because it's hard to hear.
Where would you like me to stand? Do you want me to maybe twist the speaker?
Or there.
The speaker's right there, that's good.
Yeah.
So we can
Well, I think the podium will allow me to see so you don't have to keep turning.
Sure. Wherever you want me to stand, I can stand as well.
Thank you, Amy. You're welcome.
Now you can't see what I'm looking at. That's okay. Our capital reserve right now is about $149,000. That's money that we can use in future budgets to fund capital expenses if we have that available. Just to refresh everyone's memory, the 18-19 budget included use of capital reserve of about $1,500,000. So again, it's funds that we do not have available to utilize in next year's budget to offset equipment or other capital outlay projects and so forth that we had normally used capital reserve to do. Total revenue projection, what we're able to do at this point is to project what we feel our revenues will be for next year. We, at state aid, will do a projection on, as we just talked about. Our tax levy we can calculate because that's a percentage increase on the current year levy. We estimate the district would only generate about $375,000 more in general fund revenue, even with a 2% tax increase this year, because of the reductions in other revenue sources. So that's something that we're having to contend with going forward, knowing that other expenses are going to increase, and we'll have to offset that somehow to make the revenues and the expenses equal. Salaries represent about $101 million out of our nearly $170 million general and special revenue fund budgets, or about 59%. The board is currently in negotiations with the paraprofessional unit for a successor contract to the contract that expires June 30th of this past year. The board is also currently in negotiations with our administrators bargaining association for a successor contract to the one that will be expiring this June 30th. So we have two groups that are currently not settled for next year that the board is working on coming up to agreements with. As far as health benefits go, we've been already working with our broker to look at different options and to also analyze our trend for this year as far as loss ratios and so forth that would impact our renewal for next year. So based upon the information that we have currently, the district's health benefit premiums we're looking at maybe about a 4% increase, but again, we're far from final on that because we have not even started the marketing process on our coverage and looking at other options. So, but just based upon our trend that we have been looking at as far as claims and loss ratios,
that is something that we're using as for budget purposes at this point. That would equate to roughly $850,000 of additional expense in our budget, net of the employee contributions. We do receive a significant amount of employee contributions toward our premium. Just to put it in perspective, our current budgeted health costs are about $20.8 million, but that's net of $5.6 million coming in from the employees. So we're actually looking at a number in excess of $25 million without the contributions. In the area of facilities, we've already started looking at some of the identified needs for next year's budget. And this is not an all-inclusive list, and it's also not a guarantee list of things that will be included in the budget. These are things that we're looking at and we'll be discussing with the board and further evaluating. Just to give you an example of the items we're looking at, there's asbestos flooring that we're going to need to replace. We do that on a continual basis in various buildings, just so that you know we do have asbestos flooring in all of our buildings still. We have been replacing it as the condition has been deteriorating, but there still is quite a bit throughout the 17 buildings that we have here. Parking lots and sidewalk replacements are something that we're looking at since I've been here in 2010. We really haven't done any significant parking lot work at all, and those parking lots are continuing to get wear and tear, and will need to be replaced or at least significantly repaired. We have done some sidewalk replacements, but there are more that need to be done. They also take a lot of wear and tear. We are working on continued bathroom improvements. That's something that we're trying to go throughout the district a little bit at a time, updating, refreshing bathrooms in all the buildings. The elementary HVAC units is something that we're having to spend a little more money on now. We replaced them all wholesale in all of these schools about 13 years ago. So just like as you have a car, the HVAC units are paid off, but now we're going to have to start putting a little money in for repair. So we have to take that into account. We're looking at the exterior doors in High School South. They are in need of replacement. There is a lot of painting that the principals have asked to have done. We do painting every year, but we do a certain amount, and it seems like this year in particular is getting to critical mass where it may be something we have to put out to bid or get a larger contract on, not something that we can do on a small amount. And rebuilding and recertification of the ropes course at High School South, that's actually indefinite because we've been told that unless we do that, we will not be able to use that course next year. So we do need that for the curriculum, and we'll be doing that. That will cost us about $50,000 alone just to do that. So our timeline, we have been meeting with the central administrative team. We started those meetings before the winter break. The administrators from the schools and the different departments started working on their budgets in November. So we met with all of them in December to review items that have been requested and discuss needs throughout the grade levels. We are currently focusing on staffing and scheduling, as well as other district-wide building initiatives. Budget meetings will be held with the board and board committees over the next few months. The 1920 budget must be approved by the board and submitted to the New Jersey Department of Education's county office by Wednesday, March 20th. So we will have a public hearing and adoption of the final budget between April 24th and May 7th, and these dates would be moved up by a month if the election was changed to April, which we discussed previously is not going to be happening for this year. So just to give you an idea of how that would have impacted our process, it would have probably cut about a month off of the time that we had to put something together. And that's all we have at this point. So we just wanted to bring you all up to speed, and we'll be going to further discussion about particular areas of things that need to be included in the budget and how we're going to deal with it. And it'll be a fun couple months, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Moving on to student services. Student activities, sorry.
we have two items, and one is the scholarship committee, which we already discussed, so that will be on the agenda for next week. And then we also have the memorandum of agreement for law enforcement. This is it's an agreement between the police and school districts that every district signs once a year. And we just signed this the other day. You get it from the state. We just signed it the other day with Chief Weber. And we also already trained our administrators on all the significant changes. It's more improvements they made to it. They were more reader-friendly, user-friendly. So the administrators were trained last week. And then there's going to be one more item that's not on here. I actually just got a text from Mr. Kirkpatrick. We're going to add a location for a class trip on the agenda. They have a ski trip. Remember, they started the ski trip this year, ski club rather, and their first ski trip is coming up, and they have to get the location approved. So that you'll see that. I'm not even sure exactly where it is. It's in New Jersey, I'm pretty sure. And so that'll be on the agenda. Okay.
Yeah.
Mrs. Walker, I have a question. I thought the ski trips were done off premises. Like they were advertised in the buildings, but they weren't sponsored by the district.
This year we talked about having, and we actually vetted that with Lester about the insurance and everything, and then they went through the business department and they got their own insurance, and we actually recognized them as a club. It's a club, it has an advisor, the advisor is not getting a stipend, they're just doing it on a voluntary basis, but it is a recognized club at High School South.
When you say this year, you mean 2019?
The 18-19 school year, yes.
Voted on that?
There's nothing to vote on because there's no stipend, but we did discuss it with you.
I never remember that discussion, to be honest.
We did, and Lester was in on the discussion and gave us advice on how to follow.
I was just under the impression that we discussed allowing them to advertise it in the school, but that it wasn't under school function.
Well, once we advertise it in the school, you are sanctioning it. That's pretty much the way it goes. So we either say, no, you can't do anything on campus, we can't advertise, you'd have to meet in the library, you'd have to get your word out yourself, or if it's done in the school, we should sanction it because we are anyway, we will be liable because we were advertising. So we might as well make sure everything is, in order, that they have the insurance, that they have the proper supervision on the trip. So that was the decision to go forward on a trial basis this year. There are no overnights, just one-day trips, and fairly local.
How does the volleyball club fall in under this? Because I know that there's, we started a volleyball club. Are we insuring them, and are we going to?
Well, no, we insure all clubs, but there's extra insurance because of the nature of skiing. They are actually paying, there's an extra rider, I think, Amy, right? Isn't there an extra rider that they are paying for?
And that was also under advisement of council.
Yes, of council.
Lester, and you advised the board on that they would have to get their own additional insurance on top of our insurance.
On top of the regular insurance that's for all of our clubs.
We're talking about the volleyball club now, right? Not
No, the volleyball club is just like any of our clubs in sports. It just, because it's on campus, it's covered under our insurance umbrella. But because the ski club is a little different, it's off campus, kids are skiing, which is a little more dangerous, they actually got an extra rider that is above and beyond what our insurance is.
I get the ski club. I want to know, are we insuring the volleyball club?
Every club, every sport
and are we
is
paying
insured.
for the advisors? And
Not on volleyball.
No.
That has not been approved.
So that's something that,
the volleyball is really like, we met with the volleyball, it's like, remember like hockey in Middletown? Well, this is volleyball in Middletown. And right now, they're doing this club as like a feeder, a feeder club.
I don't know about the club, I just want to know when it is, are we funding it? Are we funding it?
No, we're not funding cent. They actually bought all their own equipment.
And as we normally do with clubs, sometimes for the first year, for them to show that there's significant participation and interest, the first year, there isn't a stipend, and that's a recommendation that comes from building level, as we've done in the past. Administration is saying there's more students participating in this club, and after reviewing all the clubs, these are the clubs that have the most participation, and these are the ones that we recommend that they need an advisor. So it's actually justifying in the first year of the clubs, just as you pointed out in sports that we've done. Sometimes they go unfunded until they've been justified that the participation warrants funding by an advisor.
Well, when we used to have co-curricular, we used to be able to see what clubs are well attended and what are not. We used to get the surveys and the sign-ins, because since we went to transition, a lot of them are meeting during transition time and not as much after school.
They're meeting both. I think that's more of an administrative responsibility to be looking at all those reports and then reporting out to you which clubs are,
We haven't gotten those reports though. We didn't get those reports last
But
year.
I think it's more of an administrative responsibility to review the reports, not a board responsibility.
It was always part of our co-curricular committee. But being that we don't have that committee, how do we know now that these clubs are well attended? We used to see the sign-in sheets.
We have
the
administrators doing
activity
that.
times.
We have administrators doing that.
Yeah, again, I would concur that's an administrative responsibility. If the board requests more information, you can make that request to the board president, and we will certainly get you that
Mrs.
information.
Rogers, I'm requesting that. I'd like to see the how many people are attending these clubs, when they're meeting, how many times they're meeting, and the participation rate, because if there are other clubs that are coming up that the kids want to be in, and there are clubs that are not well attended, that's something that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, that would be an administrative responsibility, and we do review that with our building level administration, and they make recommendations on which of those clubs we move forward.
And then we bring that to you when those recommendations are made.
Yeah, clearly an administrative responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Shared services?
Thank you. I'm going to briefly go through the minutes. We met with the township. Of course, I can't get my minutes still. Okay. So we had a meeting with the township on Monday night, last night. It was well attended both by the township and the board of ed. There were 6 agenda items. I'm just going to go through them briefly as I know it's getting late. First agenda item was the topic of school board elections. This topic has been tabled until after the November elections this year, and effectively until further notice. We discussed the use of space at the Middletown Arts Center for the Arts Academy. This was a very fruitful discussion. The township has agreed to allow Board of Ed to use the MAC for the 2019-2020 school year, and that would be for the dance studio. As this is a shared service meeting, we also firmed up our agreement with the township to make the turf fields at the high schools available to the township on an as-needed basis, provided that there are no conflicts with varsity or other scheduled school activities. So we're trying to be reciprocal and give them sort of a little breather space on their permitting.
Right. No, I just want to clarify that we did discuss with them. We have been permitting these fields for several years, but I think the township feels, and we don't see a lot of rentals of them either. So just by letting them know that there's availability and working directly with them to coordinate if they need the space to put somebody on, that's what we're looking for. But we just, they are currently available to rent. They have them for years. So.
Yeah, it's a good clarification. On the topic of athletic fields, we are working closely with the township on a plan for new athletic fields. The township, on their end, is reaching out to the larger sports leagues in Middletown to get a sense of the required field capacity for the upcoming season. One of the drivers of this discussion is the fact that youth soccer 7-on-7 and 9-on-9 uses smaller fields, and so while we have some large fields at our existing facilities, what they're trying to figure out is what sort of capacity at what field size do they need. We all know that the little kids are of more populated leagues than the older kids are, and so they need more of those small fields than those big fields. Once they're done evaluating they're also taking into consideration the resting of fields to make sure that we're not overusing either existing Board of Ed or township facilities. Once the capacity is understood and they've discussed that with us, we're looking for a suitable location for an investment to be made to upgrade fields. When that location is identified, per our good neighbor policy, the township and the Board of Education will be reaching out to the community with the proposed plan. And what the good neighbor policy specifies, and Amy, please keep me honest here, is that all residents within 200 feet of the site will be invited to a public meeting, and that will be by regular mail. So people will get an invitation in their mailbox letting them know that there is a meeting to attend, explaining what it is, and then we'll hold the meeting.
Right, well, just to clarify, the policy doesn't actually say that a meeting is required, it does require the notification, but we have in the past had meetings that the intention is to have the meeting.
Perfect. Thank you. We talked about Middletown Township Police Officer administrative fees that are charged to the Board of Ed. As we've brought up in the past, when we rent the time of a police officer to cover our events, we are charged. We're charged for their time. We're also charged an administrative fee on top of their time. The township is looking into options that may allow them to lower this fee to the Board of Ed, but there are no definite plans or arrangements in place. It was indicated by the township business administrator that all entities, the Board of Ed, private schools, etc., pay the same rate per township ordinance. And we do recognize that the administrative fee does cover non-personnel costs such as vehicles and equipment. So we're not disputing the fee on its face. We just want to see if there's a way to get that fee lowered for us. On the topic of recycling, the township brought this topic up. They have asked the Board of Ed for our partnership in a community-wide recycling education program that they are currently developing. It's been in the news recently that the cost of recycling for municipalities is going up, the demand for recycled materials is going down, and there's a level of contamination, quote, contamination in the recyclables that makes them less viable for the recyclers. So the township wants to have a community-wide education to improve our recycling and continue to make it viable. The members of the Board of Ed gladly accepted this partnership at the meeting. Finally, the last topic that was touched upon was the investigation into the use of Class 3 police officers in our schools. This item has been tabled until after the budget process due to resource and financial constraints, as Mrs. Gallagher just went over. So when we understand our budgets for the 19-20 year, we will then come back and revisit this topic. But for right now, the topic is on the table. And that is the update. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I mean, could we just get to the point where we're saying we're not going to do Class 3s? I think it's just off the table because, you know, we were going to do it in September. I think that we should just say that in terms of tabling it, saying it's going to be post our budget, I think we should just say it's not going to happen as of now. So people are very aware. I mean, the idea of putting Class 3s in the secondary schools, as of now, is just not going to happen. I mean, I think it's a better way to put it. If we revisit it, then it gets revisited, because I think we keep pushing it back, and the financial situation is probably not going to change. So I think maybe we should just, as a board, if we're comfortable doing that, just say it's just not right now happen. Just so people know. So, I mean, if people are upset about that or have thoughts on it, they can come and talk about that. But there won't be a police presence in our high schools as of now.
And I think just to clarify, there wouldn't be a Class 3 police officer presence, because as has been discussed, there is a continuous police presence in many or all of our buildings throughout the day. But this would be a particular project. But I don't just, yeah, and
I should say a full-time police presence. That's
and I don't disagree with the action. I think that maybe, Mrs. Rogers, what we should do is add to the agenda for the next workshop meeting discussion of this, so that way the board will be able to, you know, take a position on it. I think that's a good idea.
I think I'd like to express my opinions on that. Maybe the public too, that might be something they're interested in, not this right.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Great.
Great. Before we leave the committee reports, I just wanted to give the opportunity for any of the new committee chairs, or any of the new committees, if they'd like to lay out how they'd like to run the committee. If there's anything anyone would like to say. Not this time. All right. Then we move on to old business. The first item on old business is the annual school board elections. I just wanted to give the board members time to speak. You know, there were some board members who had some questions and some things to say, and we asked them to save it till this meeting.
I'm going to respectfully save my comments until the issue arises again.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Anybody else? Okay, So moving on to the strategic plan and the ad hoc committee. We have to open up our strategic plan and decide how we'd like to go about that. This is open for discussion. Want to hear what the board members have to say about that?
I'm actually confused about that because when we did the strategic plan last time, the board's not involved. That was a group, well, we hired New Jersey school boards to do it. And we had administrators, teachers, community members, and they came up with the plan and they presented it to the board. You know, administration was involved, but the board was not. So I'm a little confused on, are we opening up a strategic plan or are we having an ad hoc committee? And if it's an ad hoc committee, I have to really go on the record to say, I've never, up until the ad hoc committee that we had, the last one, what was the name of it? When we were coming up with redistricting.
Talking about long-range planning.
Long-range planning. Ever was there a board member in charge of that? There was always a community member who went out, they got a group of people, they did their research, and they presented back to the board. I think the perception that happened to us with the last committee was that the board went in with a perceived way we were going to do things, and with the board running it, that's exactly how it ended up, with a lot of the community members feeling their time was wasted. People were shut out of the meetings. So I'm just a little confused on where we are going with the ad hoc committee of the board. Because usually an ad hoc committee that I've ever seen, and I could be wrong, maybe there are in other districts, but the ad hoc committees here were done with parents and community.
Are you talking about the original setup for the strategic plan? Because
yes.
The original setup, the long-range planning, was a result of the 5-year strategic plan. In other words, that was one of the follow-up points before that.
The board's in charge
right.
of the long-range
and the original
plan.
point, the original thing said, so as part of the public, was that there should be a community committee to review the follow-ups from the 5-year strategy plan. And it was the budget ad hoc. The problem is the budget ad hoc was eliminated. So what they did is they created the board, I wasn't on the board, created a new committee called Long Range Planning. Because originally, if you look at the original slides, it was, hey, for long range planning, there's some follow-ups, and we should use the budget ad hoc, because that's the only committee that included the public to follow up on some of these points. Later on, the board changed it to the Long Range Planning Committee. There was, I think there was like, I don't know, 2 or 4 liaisons or something like that. So that was a follow-up to the original planning process. So the original planning process, quite honestly, school boards, I don't know what that was there to achieve, because it was informational for sure, but it certainly was not a great tool to do any kind of strategy. And not only that, but the last strategic plan done before that was like 10 years before. I think that had been 10 years in the waiting for that process, right? We had skipped, I think the board had skipped it for quite a bit of time.
I think you're confusing the long-range plan and the strategic plan. Because the strategic plan, New Jersey school boards came in, tell me if I'm wrong, they set it up, and their goal, John, I think, was well achieved. They got community members, administration staff involved in a vision of Middletown and where we wanted to go. And it was, it's for 5 years of vision, and you sit there and, they come up with, where do you want to see your district in 5 years? What do you want to see us doing? And of course, a lot of the strategic plan is also based on finances, the things that they present to us and we accept. We look at it and we put it in a priority, at the end, a priority financial standing on what we can afford, what we can't afford. If we can't afford it, how are we going to afford it? I think that the strategic plan we're ending up with, we did a lot, and it was very successful from New Jersey school boards. I'm sorry if you had a bad experience.
No, I didn't say it was a bad experience, I said it wasn't a good plan.
But the long-range plan came out of strategic plan
right, it was
also.
one of the 6.
But that was after strategic
but
plan.
that's what I'm saying. You were talking about the ad hoc committee that came after the long range planning committee came after the whole process, right? So the process occurred, and what happened was they wanted to point to a committee that involved that had the public in it. There was only one for the budget ad hoc. That was changed by the board somehow. I don't know how that happened to a follow-up which lasted for like 1.5 years. But the original setup, though, was literally school boards coming and saying, hey, take a sticky, put it on the wall, starting with creating a new mission statement. It was a lot of stuff to do at one time. And for me, being a new parent in the district, it was informational, but it was not a strategic planning tool that I thought was as effective as it could be.
Well, I still think you're confused on it because the strategic plan was successful and it involved maybe
I'm talking about the process.
The
of
process.
that we did
The long-range plan comes after the strategic.
I'm not confused.
No. Well, I'm just saying, the long-range plan committee comes well after the strategic plan. Our strategic plan is done. We're in our last year, we're wrapped it up. It's time to open it up again. And I'm not talking about a long-range plan, I'm talking about a strategic plan that the community has a say in. And then, after that's all done, that's where the long-range plan comes in. That's where the board ad hoc committee might come in. But we're putting the cart before the horse, in my opinion, and I could be wrong.
I think
that's how
the
I know
committee
the
to figure out
process.
the best way. No, I think we're on the same page. I think what we're saying is the board should think about how they want to go about setting up the original process. The actual, not say using school boards, is there another way we can create a process?
Right, but we don't need an ad hoc committee for that. That's
I
a
think
board
that
of
might
the
be,
whole.
I didn't agree.
Yeah, that's a part of the whole discussion on who you want to
I know.
have, you might want to interview.
Okay, so you're saying the whole board should do it together?
Yeah,
Okay, I understand now. I
I'm
apologize.
confused on the ad hoc committee because that sends a bad message to the community. Again, like I said, the last ad hoc committee we had was run by board members and in good intentions, but it didn't end up that way. It turned the community
But
off.
again, that's confusing things because the 5-year setup, we have school boards do it, and I don't think all of us believe that we should let school boards set it up. I think the way the process to be set up, in other words, how it operates, I think the board should come up with a way that we think it should operate. So instead of allowing our liaison from school boards to figure it out, I think we should figure out how we want the process to kick off. How do we get the public involvement into the process?
I don't know, I just gotta be honest, I don't think that we're capable of doing that. That's why we paid them a fee to come in and do this all the time. And if we don't like school boards, there's gotta be other groups that do strategic planning. But for us to do it again, we're pre-setting it to the public. We need
So the
somebody to
administration
come
did a
in
lot
and
of
work
work.
with our public.
Our liaison didn't do the work.
They do a lot of work, yes.
No, they did the work for the setup. Like, we had almost every administrator in the district there. I don't think our liaison did this work. She thought of the processes of how to sit there and, get people involved with the slides, the presentations. Our administration did a great, and teachers did a great job. So I think you guys might notice you're on the board, but I think our administration did a lot. I would say probably did a bulk of that work.
I'm not saying they didn't.
Can I say something?
Can
I clarify? Because I ran, it was an ad hoc committee. Ad hoc committee just means a committee that comes together for a purpose and then dissolves when that purpose is over. And I worked with the school boards. I was the person in charge in the district. And they guided us. She came and, she came and talked to us like 3 times, gave us some, a guideline of what to follow. And she came to the meetings and helped us run the meetings, which was helpful. But the administrators did everything. We advertised in the paper, we advertised in school, we got all the community members to come in. So it really was a lot of work, on our part, as well. So.
Yeah, we can figure out a way. That makes sense to figure out a way to do it if we don't have school boards. We need another group to help us. That's what it is. That's fine, that makes sense.
It sounds like this, and I think in our committee, which is Strategic Planning Committee, that was established by the board president, it sounds like that committee should come together, and I agree with what everybody said. I think the intention is to involve the community, but I think that committee comes together to come up with proposals that, again, as Joan said, is reviewed by the whole board, and the board comes to consensus and moves forward.
I think the key is this is the setup, like this is setting up the process, not, it's just how is this going to work? So how can we effectively get, because people, I think there are people who didn't know it occurred last time. And I don't know how that happened. So I think it was pretty well. No, but you hear people say, I didn't know we were even talking.
So I think that we should,
I mean, see, there's some people on the board who might not.
So I think we should be open to investigating facilitators who are not school boards.
Yeah, sure.
But I think, listening to the discussion, I think we all are on the same page. I think maybe, to request maybe on the record that Mrs. Rogers just removed the phrase ad hoc from the minutes, so that the minutes reflect that we're really talking about reopening the strategic plan, that we don't need to form a committee that's going to be disbanded yet, that will come after. seems to be the easiest way to massage the discussion right now. I agree with John that in terms of hiring a facilitator, we shouldn't be limited to school boards, that we should look into who else does facilitation, and maybe Kim Wester can help us with that. But I also agree with Joan that we kind of need to get cracking on this so that we can get the public engaged and get those different committees formed and have the administration do their good work again so that we can have a strategic plan that can be brought back to the board.
Right, and I think that, since we have committees in place now, there's a lot of other topics like curriculum and all these things. So I think we need to understand what is the district's, what are the district's needs, what are the parents' needs, what are taxpayers' needs. How do we accumulate that to make this? Because honestly, when it's too open-ended, it was a little too open-ended. I mean, it was great information, and our liaison, I was here today, but it was very nice. But I think we need to have a little bit more targeting. I think we have committees that are working now and things. Maybe the public has ideas of how what they want to discuss. Because when you walk in and you're starting with resetting the mission statement, you're starting at the very beginning, and it's sort of like, okay, but maybe there's a way we can kind of get it into a spot where the public input can be right there, sort of like
I agree.
on topics.
I'm wondering if we can't focus more on the long-range planning and the enrollment issues.
I'm just saying in general, whatever we think those issues are, whether it's curriculum issues, whatever, or Arts Academy, or whatever people think we need to talk about, where we think there's an issue that the public needs to know, or there's something we want to do, and or the public wants to have input in the very early stage. But opening up and saying, hey everybody, what do you think the problem is in curriculum? That's kind of what it was like. And it's like,
We need a more
like 10
focused
people in the
approach
room.
this time.
I mean, I was there, right? I know board members weren't at all the meetings, but I was, and it felt like a little introductory, a little too much introductory.
I just have to go on and disagree, John, completely with you, because, I'm not arguing, I'm doing my perspective on this. The strategic plan was a great plan. It had different proponents. They didn't just go in and say, oh, we need to address curriculum. They had 4 different groups that people divided up into. One was a community-based one was curriculum, not just curriculum, school needs. I forget what the 4 groups were. But it didn't just jump in and decide what we wanted to talk about. The community decided what those issues were going to be and how they wanted to see them come through. I mean, that's how we got board meetings taped. That was part of the strategic plan. They had a long discussion about would the board even tolerate that? It didn't matter. It was a request from them that we as a board could agree to. It didn't cost us anything. We did it. It was things like that. It's not just about curriculum and student success. It's about community too. There was a community group on what things that needed to be addressed from the school district and community. And we've been talking about this all year long. And I think we've all said it doesn't have to be, that's how we got the cafes. It doesn't have to be school boards. We've been sitting here saying that we were going to hire a group to do something to help us look into the overcrowding. Well, that all ties into the strategic plan too. So I disagree the strategic plan was a waste of time. You talked to a lot of
I didn't say waste of time. I said it was supposed to open-ended. I said it was supposed to open-ended.
If I could just weigh in too, I think a lot of what everybody's saying, just based on that experience, first of all, the strategic plan has driven our district goals, our building goals, to Joan's point. I think what John's saying, and I love the honest dialogue, I think what John's saying is that we have some very specific issues that we know the community wants to be involved in. I know you want them involved in. I know this whole board wants them involved. So I think that what I'm hearing is from the committee, that committee work, maybe the next step really is to look at, come back within this month, communicate as a committee, come back with some potential solutions on how we can go about that, still incorporate and encompass the greater work, but also focus community involvement in those issues like the enrollment challenges that we all know are paramount. I think that's
there are other issues too.
There are
Yeah,
issues.
I think calling that stuff in advance, at least having some of that stuff a little bit more. And if I implied it was a fail, I didn't mean to say that. I thought it'd be just more effective and more efficient. And I think also part of the challenge is how do we get the message out? Because there were folks who said they had no idea that it was going on, even though I thought it was well advertised. No, but I mean, people say that. Yeah, I thought so too. I mean, I knew what was going on, but
I can speak,
how
I
do we
wasn't on
get-
the board and
how
I
do we
didn't
survey the
know. And none of my
community?
friends knew.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest.
But how long ago? This was over 6 years ago. Did you have anybody answer 6 years ago? Because we really did try to reach out. No offense, you might not have been involved in a school yet, but we did try to reach out to the community. I mean, we've even had someone from the township committee on our strategic planning. We had people from senior citizen complexes on there. We had everybody, community members that didn't have kids in the schools yet, or community members that had kids that went through the schools. We tried to engage everybody, and there was a large amount. As it gets to the end, it kind of dwindles down to a few, maybe some lost interest or some felt they weren't heard because it was a matter of discussions. You know, people really voicing their opinions. We had members of the Friends of Diverse Learners on the committee. We had special education parents from all over, every type. We had honor students, AP kids, parents. We had everybody covered in this strategic plan. I think we need to do it with an outsider. If we really want the community to believe that we want their input, we have to have an outsider leading this, because everybody's going to come in with the perception that, oh, they already got a plan, why are we wasting our time? And if you talk to a lot of people that were on budget ad hoc and a lot of these other committees, that's how our community's feeling, whether we want to hear that or not. They're feeling that we're not hearing them. So what a better way to do it than a strategic plan? I don't care what company you hire, as long as they have experience in doing a strategic plan. But we have to get our community involved, because in years to come, look at our buildings, look at everything around us. It's going to cost us money to do it. And it has to come from the community to get the buy-in. If we really want to do the right things, and if it's going to go the route that we're going to need a referendum to fix things or to do things, we need their buy-in. And we're not getting their buy-in if we're not doing it with somebody that's impartial. It's just my personal opinion.
Maybe that's something we discussed in our first meeting with the committee. Maybe that's something we discussed. What did we do in the past to get the word out to the public? What can we do more so to get the word out to the public? Who do we use? Which companies do we use to guide us through the long range planning aspect?
I think the lessons learned, like I said, when I thought it was well advertised, but how do we get a good cut of the population? And, I know that we reach out to other people, but taxpayers who don't have children in our district, who maybe go to private school or maybe never had, or it's been a long time. But it's an interesting question. How do we get that? It's big, right? So a town our size, to get, even if you have 100 people in the room, 70,000 people in the town, right? So how do you get that? How do you get it most effectively? I don't know. A company would be a good idea, but maybe someone just talk about how do we go about setting it up in a way that gets that. I think trying to herd what the community feels is harder than it sounds. Right? It sounds easy, but it's not. Right? It's hard to figure out how do you really get that.
Absolutely. Mike wants to speak.
Thank you. Can we start with a review of the strategic plan, knowing where it is today? And if you did that in a bigger environment, as John was saying, you can help provide people with the steps that we took to get to the first one. How we are, where we are, because we may have this 5-year plan, but we might still be in year 2 on some of this stuff.
No, we have been, we report up twice a year on all the areas, but what you need is the overall plan, you say, for everybody to have.
It's on the website, we meet all those goals.
We'll make sure it's in the board. I think it is in the board, but we'll make sure that it is in the board for everybody to review.
Plus, make some of those goals might be outdated. And that's why we need to open it up to get new ones.
Let's start at the beginning.
And get out your homework. Everybody read the strategic plan. Start from there. All right, so moving on to new business. I just have one thing.
Last month, we acknowledged the passing of a former board member with a moment of silence. I will definitely mangle this last name, and I apologize. Her name was Ellen Shregan, and she was a board member here, and we had mentioned that she was the mother of a teacher here in Middletown, Miss Hill. I forgot to also acknowledge that she's also the mother of a teacher at Thompson, and Kaufman. So, thoughts and prayers to their whole family.
And also the grandmother of Adam, our student speaker.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned that to Dr.
Yeah, we did last time.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no other new business, I'd like to open the mic for public comment.
I'll do it quick, I'm sorry.
Sue Griffin, I'm going to be very fast because I have to go home. First, regarding the AP classes, I do applaud you for opening them up to freshmen. I think that's a good move. But I would like to just remind you that AP classes are taken by students to improve the rigor of their transcripts, and that makes them competitive with students across the country. Many of our students take multiple AP classes, and I know from sitting on previous scholarship committees, and if you get a chance, invest the 4 days, it's worth it. I've met some incredible children in the past, and the time that I put in has enriched my life, and it's been my pleasure. But I've heard from those students that they pick and choose which AP tests they take based on where they think they will do the best and what will serve them the best as they pursue their academic careers. Something was said that stuck with me, and the quote was, the AP's scores, the AP tests, better improve our high school standing. I'd just like to remind us that our job here is not only to improve the school's high school standings, but for us to improve the children's standings. The job of the school district is beneficial. Let me put it this way. We're here to serve the children and not to have the children serve us. And if not having them take an AP test at the end of the year better serves them, that would be my suggestion. My next thing is on the strategic plan. The strategic plan encompasses all aspects of the school district from the community's perspective, because different members of the community have different concerns. Some think budget or finance are most important, some think special ed is most important, some think curriculum is most important, some think extracurriculars are most important. The job of the school board is to provide the opportunity for all community members to be heard, and not to limit it to what you guys think is most important. So if it takes sticky notes on a board or redoing the mission statement, that's your job. It does take time. It is a long process, but the community is in for it. Give them the opportunity to do the strategic plan, and you'll reap the benefit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue.
Perfect.
How much time do I have?
3 minutes.
Okay. Tricia McGuire, thank you very much. I've heard so much conversation about research and experts and why they are important in terms of making your decisions for the AP courses. And I do understand that research and experts are important for building curriculum and programs. But I would like to emphasize that research and experts do not necessarily mitigate the realities of our families and our communities. And what I mean by that is we talked a lot about how we compare and how many people take the test to neighboring municipalities such as Keyport and Keansburg and Neptune. And when you look at those, you have to consider the socioeconomic circumstances of those communities. And remember that Middletown is very vast in their socioeconomic capabilities to pay for and take tests of that nature. So I did hear mentioned some conversation that was incidental, also probably anecdotal, where we collected data from students like casually, why did you not take the test? I don't know any 16-year-old that will say to a teacher in the hallway, because I couldn't afford it. So typically they'll say, well, maybe I didn't want to take it, or I wasn't feeling ready for it. So I would encourage you to consider those circumstances when looking at research and what the experts have to say. Additionally, in terms of fees and saying that perhaps we would waive them if the situation was warranted, this is a public school. I don't believe that in any situation a family should have to explain their financial circumstances or meet whatever arbitrary standard you put forward to qualify for that. Specifically, qualifying for the lunch program is not the same as a family that might have perhaps 2 children in college, getting another child ready for college, paying for the applications for that, paying for SATs, things of that nature. There's a lot of other circumstances that go into considering financial circumstances. We talked about them being more rigorous. Of course they're more rigorous and they prepare you for the exam, but that does not exclude you from the fact that you still have to earn a grade in a more difficult class. So you don't need a test to prove that you have mastered the material. You can take the A away from that class and prove you have mastered the material. Whether or not we're talking about things being weighted or not weighted, they still prove that you're college ready, right? So when you are in an interview at a college, you're still able to say, I attended this class, I mastered this class, I got an A in this class. Not all colleges accept credit from AP classes. Additionally, most colleges only accept up to 11 credits, so you can overload your transcript with these AP classes, but many colleges will not accept more than 11 credits towards your matriculation at their universities. And we're talking a lot about, you teach in that class for the test. We do that already with our core curriculum for PARC. If you have a kid who's not specifically able to do well on a test, but still gets an A in a class, but doesn't do well in the PARC, they still have proved that they've mastered material. I see my time is up, so I'll stop.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Danielle Walsh. I'm going to be pretty probably similar to Sue. First, real quick with the strategic plan, just a suggestion when you are doing the strategic plan, my suggestion would be to reach out to the PTOs and principals, as well as CVA, Monterey, and St. Leo's PTOs and principals, and Shady Oaks and Shadow Lake, and maybe use Leo, and ask them each to volunteer 5 to 10 people for your strategic plan and have people committed. That way you have someone from each and every part of town. It's so important that you get a voice from every single section of town, and it's not heavily weighted from one particular part of town or another. Second, to follow up on what Tricia and Sue said, first, thank you, I agree with Sue. The freshmen allowing them to do AP courses is amazing. But I also agree with Sue and Tricia. My phone did not stop ringing from last night and still has been beeping throughout. How's it going, what's going on with this AP? I hate the their side and our side, but with something like this, it is what it is. My side of town is scared to death of this AP thing. The kids are scared, the parents are scared. They're afraid they can't afford it. Yes, the free and reduced lunch is one thing. It's another thing to have to admit that. There's plenty of people, and I'm sure Dr. George and Mary Ellen know, there's plenty of people who don't fill out that paperwork for pride reasons. And there's plenty of people who won't go to their guidance counselor and ask for help. And there is no student in our district who should ever not take a test, not take a class because they don't have the money. And that should never happen. And if we force them to take the test, that is going to happen. I don't believe our administration wants that in any way, shape, or form. I know you have our best interests at heart. No one is a bigger defender of our administration no matter what happens ever. Dr. George, you know that. I'm always on your side. In this particular case, I just think you need to rethink this one. $95 for a test, it's not a lot to most of us, but if someone's taking 2 or 3 tests and they're a single parent or maybe their parents aren't involved, and now the onus falls on the child. And the child has to jump through the hoops or get the extra job to make sure this is paid for. And yes, I know our guidance counselors are committed, but maybe the child doesn't want you to know. Or for whatever reason. I find it, and I hate to use this word, but it is discriminatory. It does come down to that for me. It's also important to note that we don't put our ideas of what a strategic plan should be for college acceptance in other people's families. Your idea of how to get into college isn't necessarily my idea of how my child should get into college. And these courses are weighted. And like it or not, they are linked to class rank. And there is a class rank. I was on the strategic, I was also like Sue on the scholarship committee. And the scholarship committee, right on the piece of paper, has their class rank. Whether we use it or not, it's there. And these kids know it, and my time's up, and I'm sorry, but please reconsider that.
Hey everyone, Hope Anderson from Navesink. First thing is a quick request for consideration that the policy about not asking questions during presentations, generally speaking, be revisited, because questions after the fact, after the presentation is done, is a little less effective than when the presentation is going on. For instance, with administration, I have a quick question about the AP. Is there a consequence if the student does not take the AP exam?
Currently?
Yes. No, for moving forward with the requirement of having to take the test.
Well, I think as we said, it is a work in progress.
Okay,
We're talking to
no,
other
just
districts,
no.
we're trying to figure out how they are addressing that expectation.
Okay.
Or that component of the AP program.
Okay, I mean, I would have to assume that there is some sort of idea in mind of which direction we're moving in. I mean, are we talking about kids not getting credit for their class, or?
I have to admit, I don't think any of us have determined that at this point. There is no preconceived notion for consequence.
If this is going to be a requirement for next year, at what point do we know at what point this concept or a consequence, because there must be a consequence to enforce the rule, when that would be decided?
We, as we said before, we wanted to be very transparent in where we were at in our findings. It's January, so we were as transparent as we could be. I think we gave a couple scenarios that we were already aware of that we would expect as being perhaps hardships or considerations or
No, what if the
obstacles.
student just decided they didn't want to take the test?
Okay, so I'm getting there. So
Okay.
that's as far as we're at right now.
Okay.
Like, we did not want to wait until September because there have been instances in the past when community members weren't happy with, the delay in finding out information or being in the know in real time. So we were sharing out in real time what we know is an expectation, what we know other districts are doing, making, the expectation is there that the students take the test. We're trying to explore how we kind of bridge this gap between where we're at with participation rate and where we want to be so that students make the most out of that program.
Okay, so two.
I don't have an answer for you. I know you don't believe me, but I really don't.
No, I do. I actually do believe you. You've always been
Because you were
very
pressing
straightforward.
me thinking that maybe we had a preconceived.
No, but generally speaking, there are usually ideas of paths of one versus another, and I'm just curious if you were able to share. Moving on, because I don't want to run out of time real quick. A request for the budget proposal presentation, will that be made available online?
Sure.
Okay. When, do we know, because at the PIC meeting, it was offered, but I couldn't, I really tried to look on the website and I couldn't find it, so I'm assuming it wasn't posted yet.
I believe it's going to be part of the minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yes, it will be posted on this within.
Under the budget? Under budget?
Yes, our intent is to break it out.
Okay, thank you.
Our intent is to break it out on the homepage.
Sorry, your time's up.
Sorry, I'll be fast. I know everybody wants to go home. Rachel Konopka. I just had a quick question about the AP stuff. Again, a follow-up. I know Raritan has very high participation, and it sounds like the tests are being paid for by the district for those students. Is it a requirement and the district is paying, or is it's optional and the district is paying and the people are just motivated to take it because they don't have to pay for it? Does anybody know?
My understanding is it is, oh, I'm sorry.
It's required.
It's a requirement.
It is, it's okay, so there are other districts who are requiring that this test gets taken, okay? Okay, and then my other just comment, I guess, as it relates to strategic planning and involvement of the community. I recognize it's kind of, if you're not familiar with these meetings and the topics that are being discussed, et cetera, when you hear something like strategic planning, it sounds like a chasm. Like, what could that possibly be? You don't know. I mean, I have a little bit more of an idea having attended the meetings, but the average parent, if they're not watching the tapes or if they're not coming, may not even know what that means. So to kind of better define, as John was saying, what it would mean or what are the top issues, I think there may be an opportunity to survey the parents and ask it in a more specific way, not like, what do you think our strategic plan should address, but what are the biggest issues you think the district is facing? What is the district doing well? Where do you think there could be improvement? And that might help guide, okay, there's like 4 hot button issues and that's what strategic planning should cover. And my guess is, and I don't know the ins and outs of the strategic plan, but it's probably not a reinvent the wheel thing. My guess is a lot of the fundamental principles that were captured 5 years ago are the same. It's just, where are we now? Where do we want to be in 5 years? And what's the gap? How do we address getting from here to there? And how do we make it actionable? As opposed to just kind of saying, yes, we want to continue improving. So just my little input. Thank you very much.
Can I just address that, Pam, for 1 second?
Go ahead.
When we did the strategic plan last time, we had a community meeting. And they came out and they explained to the public what the strategic plan was about and how it works. So it's not that people have to guess what it is. It would, if you get a good company, they will come in and explain it to everyone.
Leo Christophely, Shady Oaks. I took the liberty of putting 2 documents on your table at your place. The first one is an article from January 8th, Asbury Park Press. It explains that there are 2 laws coming from the state government. One was created in 2014, the other one was created in 2018. And it basically says that between and including the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, middle school students should be taught certain specific aspects of economy related to, I guess, their age level. And I don't know why this isn't a law for the high schools. The national student debt is about $1.5 trillion, and it's gone out of sight. And they really want a bailout from the government. Okay, it's we're all looking for bailout, rich as well as poor. The second thing, I'd like to see a presentation like I've witnessed in the last 3 or 4 months, where you call up teachers and Kim presiding, I guess, that leading it on, giving guidance, where all the teachers that are involved in any academic field or department would give a presentation of what they're doing with their students in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in the 10 topics that are listed in the lower right half column. That's a recommendation. I'll sure to be here if you have such a presentation. The second document is an example of what a lawyer didn't even understand at a meeting, and I didn't either, but I did persevere. And as a seminar student, I tried to research it in several areas, and I think I got a grasp of it. This document purports to be with 5 columns. It purports to be a amortization payment schedule from 2018 to 2050 for 30 years for Middletown capital improvement, including the new town hall, which you should all be well informed of. Basically, it was advertised. I challenged it at a meeting that no public funding would be used for the payment of $56.7 million. I challenged that. The reason why they could say that, the Middletown government fashioned itself legally, there's a legal out for this, they call themselves a private firm.
Sorry, I'm sorry, but your time is up. Your time is up, Leo. I'm so sorry.
You could extend me, you know you have the authority to do that.
It's 11:21, but if you'd like, we should go hang out sometime and we can chat about this stuff. It's very interesting.
Well, I'll stand here at the microphone and let them leave after they adjourn. Is that agreeable?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm here.
You sit here.
It's a date.
I'm gonna stay here.
Okay.
Proceed.
All right, seeing no one else come to the mic, anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry, Leo. I'm gonna come to you, Leo, don't worry.
You're still my favorite, Leo.
Pam Smith from Fort Monmouth. I have a question about next year's calendar. Can I ask the board? I just want to understand the logic behind adding another day off for the students on November 11th after they come home or come back from break. I just want to understand why we added the date there instead of a professional development day, say in March, when we don't have any. You know, fall break is an issue that I have with our district. I understand the thing about attendance and low attendance during fall break. Teachers convention drove that. Cheap vacations, time for people to visit colleges. But not everyone in Middletown takes time off during fall break. There's a very large population that this is a financial burden. It is child care issues, people who work 2 jobs, 2-income families. This week off is a luxury we have. Now we're adding an extra day. So we're asking people not only to take 5 days of potential vacation time or paid employment, or that they could use during the holidays. Now we're asking for 6. So I highly advise the board to look at that 11th and move that professional development day somewhere where it's not as much of a burden to our families. So before next meeting, if we can maybe take a look at that other side of the population where they don't get that extra vacation time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Seeing nobody else come to the mic, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstention?